I'll make a little
Okay,
post.
we are live. And I just got my own notification on Instagram telling me to watch my own live, which is something. Thomas, how you doing?
I'm doing good. This is weird being live.
It's weird as well because we've just been having a conversation for the last 10, 15 minutes, and now we have to pretend like we're just starting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm doing well. For me over here in Kuwait, it's about 10 o'clock in the evening. And I'm aware that, listen, I'm moving to Japan in a few months, as I said, and I've really kind of chosen a poor time to start kind of live streaming and chatting to people because suddenly I'm going to be, 16 hours ahead of everyone else. I'll have to find the Japanese booktubers.
I mean, you could PewDiePie.
True. Do you know, last time I was in Japan, I went to just a famous place of Japan. This was like he just moved because he moved to Japan about 2 weeks before I left.
Okay.
And we went to the same locale and he posted like a live update. Like, I want to say about 5 minutes I left the place that he'd just been to. So I was about 5 minutes away from PewDiePie. And I probably would have just stared at him kind of awkwardly from a distance. So it wouldn't have made a difference. But,
I mean,
it's funny how
a nice guy.
Yeah.
Like,
he strikes me as a nice guy.
Yeah. He seems, I don't know, he seems genuine, at least, now. Like a lot of his early content, I don't know. Oh, wow. We got a viewer.
Hello. Hi, Sebastian. What I was going to say, and one thing because I used to watch PewDiePie quite a lot back in the day, like when I was in like my early 20s, whatever. He used to do booktube himself, and I don't know if he gave that up.
I know he did, recently he did like 10 books that he's read.
Good.
But I didn't know he was like part of that. Wow.
Yeah.
I thought he was mainly.
As are we.
Huh?
As are we. How long have you had your channel? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Goodness. I think since last July. So it'll be a year soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
January 6th. And I can tell you why. Because I turned 31 January the 5th. And I have had the idea of booktube like percolating in my mind for the last, I want to say 4 years. This YouTube account that I'm currently on, Four Corners of the Page, I actually made it back in like COVID. Because it's something I really, really wanted to have in my life. I'm seeing people talking about books, sharing their thoughts, sharing their opinions, uploading it, and kind of not necessarily having traction. Because we spoke just off air. It's not really about having the traction, is it? But I thought that's something I want to do. So I made this channel. I posted one video, hated it, deleted it, and just shut the whole thing down for 4 years. And it was on my birthday, January the 5th. I thought, listen, I need to do something here. And so I filmed it's the first video on my channel as it stands, is 10, 11-minute, one take, absolute garbage ramble. Posted it, walked away, went to bed, because I'm like, if I look at it one more time, I will just delete it. And that was kind of my slow journey into booktube, because it's something I really wanted to do. But I have none of the technical ability or technical acumen for it. But now here I am.
You don't need that.
Yeah.
You don't need that. I remember you commented a while ago on one of my videos and you were like, I just have a phone. I'm like,
yeah,
stuff is fine. Your stuff is not bad. There's stuff that definitely looks like it's shot on like a Nokia phone, like from early not your stuff, but it's just some people that's just what it is. But I think the big thing is audio.
Yeah. We should say, Thomas, this is your first live, right?
Yeah, this is my first live. So if I'm like nervous,
you're doing well. And I was telling you off air, and I'm going to repeat myself. And apologies if I talk over you. It's not intentional. I'm just a bit wary of a delay. But I am in love with your channel. And I find it interesting that you've said the same thing back to me, because for me, I was saying this again, that you bring such an authentic, kind of different atmosphere to booktube. In an era of people like me just rambling at the camera. I love your slower, considered pace. I love kind of how you take time to really consider what you want to say, and it's all put together in this really lovely kind of meditative package, which I find really enthralling. So there's your compliment for the evening.
Thank you. I mean, I think the same thing about you. I love that you were just saying, I want to make this channel because I want to do it, and that's key. You want to have that right motivation. Because if it's not there, then why are you doing anything? So I love your attitude behind it. Regardless of, any mean comments we get, that's the internet. And It's all about having a conversation. And
I was telling Thomas I had my first mean comment the other day, and it wasn't even mean. It was very cold and clinical and critical, and you were very nice and kind of helping to what's the word, salve my ego, as it were. So I appreciate that.
I get those all the time. I also have like a very light like option on my channel where it like sifts through certain comments, like it hides certain comments or it holds them. And very rarely does it happen, but if it's like a cuss word in there,
yeah,
I don't really care about that. But sometimes an F-bomb will get shot in the comments, and I'm like, huh, all right. But yeah, the internet, you're gonna just get mean comments, and thankfully we have our wives to be like, hey, don't worry.
I don't know about you, but like my wife saves me. And I was saying this to Von Roycroft yesterday, who I interviewed for my channel, and that'll be coming up tomorrow. It seems so many of us are completely indebted to our wives who help us through and guide us and make us better people, frankly. And I'm saying this on the internet rather than saying it to her. I hope she can hear me next door. She'll probably text me if she can. But it's undoubtedly true, especially with children. And like with my two kids, like, oh my goodness, she saves me.
Yeah, I am no one without my wife, and I am very thankful. We're going to be coming up on a year.
Congratulations.
In like 2.5 weeks. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
How'd you guys meet?
We met through a mutual friend who was in my industry. He's a music composer. I was at a wedding industry party with him, and he had a friend, and he goes to this pizza place every Monday for meter-long pizzas. And I joined him a few times. I think he showed me a photo of this girl, and I'm like, oh, she's cute, And then one Monday, I'm laying in bed, tired, not really inspired, and he's like, hey, pizza tonight? And I'm like, nah. And then he's like, hey, that girl's going to be there. I'm like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
And they situated the table to where she's sitting across from me. She's the only empty chair across from me. And we just hit it off like we were old friends, like talking about cinema, photography, filmmaking. I mean, it's just, yeah. And then I walked her to my car. Or no, I walked her to her car, and we just so happened to be in the same parking lot.
Yeah.
And then I asked her for her contact information because I felt like asking for her number was just kind of like, hey, yo, can I have your number? Rather
yeah. It has a connotation, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a little different. Like, huh, okay. So, yeah, we'll be going on, is it 7? Right now it's 7 years together, I think. So, yeah. What about you?
So I met my wife when I was in university. My wife's American. And I basically, when I was like age 19, I had the earliest midlife crisis you're ever going to encounter. I kind of, through various circumstances that I won't get into, I was in a pretty like pit in my life. And I was fortunate enough that the university I was going to were advertising like study abroad. Sort of, there were flyers everywhere. And so I found, so I went to one of these meetings that said, where do you want to study abroad? And there was, Australia, New Zealand, America, all this stuff. Hi, Slay, how you doing? Good to see you. And there was one for a town called, I don't know if you know Utica, New York.
Gosh, that sounds familiar.
The Simpsons have made fun of Utica to death, and to be honest, it kind of deserves it. We're doing very well, Slay. It's good to see you, man. I'm actually going out for dinner with Slay tomorrow because we found out that we are living about 3 miles from each other. I don't know if everyone likes to say that on the internet, Slay, but I'm looking forward to it, mate.
That's amazing.
And so basically this happened. And so I went, okay, I'll go to America. But I thought Utica, New York meant New York City. I didn't understand that New York is kind of like England in terms of size. So I was like, yeah, I'll go to New York City. And so I sign up and I get accepted to Utica College, New York. And Superintendent Chalmers is from Utica. Oh, excuse me. Give me a second. I have lost the internet. I can hear you. There we go. So I go to Utica, and I'm a bit miffed because I'm 5 hours from the middle of nowhere. Like it's right up. It's kind of near Canada, kind of halfway to Canada. But I'm like, you know what? It was perfect for me because Utica was a small town. The college was about 2,000, 3,000 people, as opposed to like a 20,000 person university, which I went to in Scotland. And I went to, actually, it was the Christian Union group, and it was about 10 or 12 people. And I almost didn't go that night because I was just really tired or whatever. And I went, and then sitting next to me, maybe about 2 seats down, was who is now my wife. And it's funny how you asked about the content and for getting her details, because I am an idiot first and foremost, and I'm deeply forgetful. It's what makes me a great reader. And I immediately forgot her name, and I was like, oh my goodness, I want to find out who this person is, and I've forgotten her name. What the flip do I do? And so I was like, oh, hey, how about you? And again, this dates me, but I was like, how about you? You put your name into my Facebook and you can add me. So I just give her my phone and she types her name in and hits enter. And I'm like, oh, that was so slick. She definitely knew that she just didn't know that.
Ask, how do you spell your name?
Like, should have. I wasn't that helpful. It's a miracle she even said yes to give me her Facebook details, to be honest. And so she added me, and then like years later, I kind of asked her, I'm like, did you know exactly what I was doing? And she's like, yeah, I knew exactly what you were doing.
Yeah.
So we met. She was 18, turning 19, and I just turned 20. So it was about a year and a half in it.
Yeah.
There. But then I proposed basically the following year, and we got married when I was 22, and she was 20.
Wow.
Which everyone warned me off. Every time I told someone that I'm getting married, age, whatever, 20, 21, 22, I had so many comments saying, "Listen, no, you're too young." Some people just saying straight to my face, "You shouldn't do it. It's a bad call." But you know what? We've been married for, I want to say 9 years now, and 2 children who I quite enjoy. So
yeah,
it seems
I think you're doing pretty good. You're doing all right. Yeah,
I'm very grateful for her.
It's different for everyone.
Yeah.
I'm 30, going to be turning 31 in a couple months, and
yeah,
just how it is.
Yeah. So, I think as soon as and this kind of connects to BookTube as well, I think as soon as we start comparing ourselves to other people, that's when things start to go south. You always have to acknowledge that people are on the journey that they're on, and that's just it, And comparison is where so many bad things begin to breed.
Yep. I have been going through it the past couple weeks with not BookTube or anything. It's just my business. It's different, It's you have to put yourself out there. So you got to get on social media. You got to get on all these platforms, but you're surrounded on those platforms with other people, and it's so easy to compare yourself. So BookTube, wedding films, whatever you do, it's just we can't help but compare ourselves, and you just got to stay focused. And like you said, everyone's on their own journey, and everyone's got their own unique style, a unique voice. Especially with YouTube and BookTube. Like,
yes,
I don't care who you are. Everyone should have a YouTube channel because everyone has a voice. Everyone has a unique voice, and no matter what, you have something to say and something to offer. And that's what makes me a little sad when I see YouTube just kind of become this copy and paste content, boom, boom, boom. But, people make money doing that.
Yes.
So sometimes they have to do that. But going back to my point is just being honest, being yourself. So I think everyone should have a YouTube channel because you get to meet people like this and have interactions like this.
Do you know Shay, who is just in the comments there? I think I skipped past you, but Shay's become a really good mate of mine. Hi, Shay. How you doing?
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know there's this whole thing here.
Oh yeah, there's people watching us, man.
Well, I see private chat and then there's comments. I am so
comments are the stuff that comes up live. I think the live stuff will disappear after the stream, unless I flag it up, which is what I'm doing right now. Look, I can dance between all these lovely people who are watching us. We're like cavemen discovering fire, aren't we?
Yeah, really.
But one thing that Shay and I were just talking about yesterday is like the fact that YouTube sort of pushes its numbers on you. And Shay had a really successful video that was really amazing. Like a top 10, his top 15, I believe, Shay, his favorite series of all time. And he was talking about the fact that lots of people are watching this, and he was really excited. But at the same time, YouTube almost kind of forces you to focus on your successes, and it will let you know if you're doing something bad. And this is kind of connected to the fact that, and you kind of mentioned to it previously, Thomas, that I got a negative comment on one of my videos, which of course you're going to, is the internet, telling me all the stuff I was doing wrong. Now, the guy who gave me this comment, it seemed like a lovely person and was just trying to be helpfully critical. And of course, I can't put stuff out into the internet and not expect some constructive feedback. But it does come back to this thing of kind of, I want my channel to be not just about score out of 5. I don't want my channel to just be star ratings, and I don't want to be beholden to the algorithm. I also want to put out something that's authentically me, which I think is kind of what you're saying as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's key. What's going on here? Hold up.
So we
I
do some
always hate
questions.
when people ask a question and then, or like when I ask a question on live stream and I get ignored. So
Yes, do it. We've got two.
Finn Michael says, does having a booktube channel make reading more magical or stressful?
That's a good question, isn't it?
More magical to me.
I'm just telling Sebastian to go ahead and ask his question to you, because Sebastian's got a question for you. For me,
it's magical. Sorry, we're talking to each other. You go.
Well, you go first.
Well, it's magical because I haven't allowed my channel or comments to influence how I read and how I, like I've said in a few of my videos, like I'm not going to try to rush through a book for the sake of getting a review out.
Yes.
And I get a lot of suggestions, a lot of books like, hey, you need to read Malazan. Holy cow. I'm getting a lot of that. And hey, you got to do the audiobooks for Dungeon Crawler Carl. I know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to like pace myself and like really be true to myself in what I read.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be able to share that and have my channel reflect that, because that's what's going to make, my channel, in my eyes, a little more honest. And that's what's made it more magical, because I haven't allowed that pressure to occur.
It's interesting. You've both off and on, and you've used that word honesty about 3 or 4 times now. I've noticed in the last, we've been on live for about 15 minutes, but we had a 15-minute conversation beforehand. So now we've had about half an hour of chat. And I think you said that word honesty 3 or 4 times. And I think that really gets to the heart of who you are, and why your content is appealing to so many people, because it does feel like a genuine voice. So I think that comes across really brilliantly, to be honest.
Yeah. I agree.
But for me, I would say magical, stressful too. I think for me, I have made my YouTube channel, it's out of a love for reading. So the reading has to come first, or everything suffers and it just becomes a stress. For me, I also have created this YouTube channel. I don't know if I've mentioned this previously, maybe. I really wanted to do a PhD, and I spent the last 6 months, a year, trying to work out how I could fund the PhD. And the long and short of it is, right now, I just can't. I'm really interested in literature. I'm really interested in fantasy. I'm really interested in education. And something on the trifecta of those three I find really appealing. And then I started to look up PhD costs. And obviously I have a wife and 2 kids, so I've got to be very careful. And I kind of decided not to say never, but to put that on hold for now. And BookTube kind of became the replacement for that. So for me with BookTube, there's also this kind of quasi-academic feeling where I'm getting to talk to authors. I've done a few of these now. I'm talking, I had an interview with Roy Voncroft. Sorry, Von Roycroft, not Roy Voncroft. Von Roycroft with Shay actually yesterday, and that's getting posted tomorrow. And I love being able to actually interrogate these authors about their work. So magical is one word for it, but at the same time, I'm really enjoying the discourse, if that's not too fancy and highfalutin a way of putting it. I'm enjoying the conversation.
Yeah, it's unreal. Like, I'm just so happy that this space is so much more than just putting your face out there and your voice out there, but the back and forth, the conversations you get to have, because I don't comment a lot on YouTube videos. So the fact that people take their time to leave a comment on my videos is like, oh, wow. That takes time to think about words and type out words. And just to have that back and forth it's great. And it makes this platform and this channel like just amazing.
But I think also your content in particular, and it's one thing I'm actually going to emulate, talking about emulating other people, I'm going to emulate you, because in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be making a video that is a bit more reflective, just kind of posing a question. And that's based on stuff. It's not just about, here is my opinion of this book, which is fine. There's a place for that. But there's also here's what I think about reading in general. And I think that's really important. Sebastian has a question for you that I'm not sure you want to tackle. He did say, I'm poking the bear here. So...
Oh yeah, I'm not even like well versed in this. It's crazy. Name of the Wind is my favorite book of all time, but I've only read it once, and this was now 4 years ago. So since then I've read many books, and I still remember the story and some of the beats, but it's the language and the writing style that
Yes.
sticks with me.
Mm-hmm.
How Patrick Rothfuss writes women, I don't even think I'm well equipped to give out an opinion on that, because reading it, I never looked at that point of view in that way or anything. I don't really look at especially, so I think a good example is Wheel of Time, how Robert Jordan writes women. That's something that is kind of, you notice, but
Yeah.
it's something I don't look at when I'm
It's tugging
reading.
the braid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you read Wheel of Time all the way through?
So we're gonna disagree on this. I'm not a huge Wheel of Time fan. I got to book
Okay.
11 and I patched it. But yeah,
Wow,
I
you went that far?
I will get to it because I'm on a Brandon Sanderson
You
completionist
should.
arc.
Okay, you should. But I think I like how Jordan kind of flipped the script on how that world is primarily led by women, and how the magic
Yes.
system is, how women are able to harness the magic system differently from men, and how men they're tainted and they can go mad. So when looking at, I guess, how certain people write women, I don't know. I don't look at, when I read books, I don't look at it like that. I try to just get lost in the story rather than look at how the author writes certain people, writes certain demographics, because I don't want to get distracted. And then maybe after the fact, I'll think about it. And that's kind of my thoughts on like Wheel of Time. It's like, hey, that is definitely in your face, how he writes women and how he writes men. But it's for a purpose, because since you've read 11 books, or you're at book 11 or wherever you are,
I think I finished. I've got one more Jordan book to go.
then you're on 11.
I'll need to do a big recap of the whole series before I hit that final book.
There's plenty of that. You can just watch Mike's book reviews. But
I love that guy. And he follows you as well.
Men and women working together, different cultures coming together and trying to separate their differences and just work together. That's like one of the biggest themes of Wheel of Time. Yeah. And I love that. I love that is a big aspect of it. So sorry to take away from like Name of the Wind and back to Wheel of Time, but that's just, I feel like I'm more well-versed to have an opinion on Wheel of Time because it's fresh.
You did a big journey through Wheel of Time recently, didn't you?
Yeah.
Like you made a big project out of it. And I know they're sitting on that lovely bookshelf of yours over there, the complete set. And that was quite a meaningful experience for you as well, reading the Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How long did it take you?
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I am a slow reader, so, and it's dense. And maybe it's not like Malazan dense. I know everyone says, it's different, but
listen, can I interrupt you? Forget Malazan. I'm the Malazan fan you'll ever encounter, but we can be a smug bunch sometimes. So if anyone ever says anything like, "Oh, but Malazan does it," just toss them out the window, because I think Malazan fans are so rabid, and me as well, because I love that series to death. But I think there's a thing within the community sometimes that we say, it's the best thing you'll ever read and nothing will compare. And I think that maybe is taking things maybe a step too far. Maybe you do have that book hangover that's a bit more pronounced when you finish it. But I think also there are plenty of other series that are doing different things. And it's kind of how you approach it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think it's expectations going into something. Right now, Malazan, my expectations are confusion, homework, dense, getting lost. I don't know, but that's why I'm not approaching it yet, because I'm not ready.
But listen, we have a mutual friend in Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Yeah. And I'm still
which is totally also
I've only finished book 1, so.
It's good.
Sorry.
You've got so much. No, it's okay. I think there's a slight delay. So you've started book 2 or no of Dungeon Crawler Carl?
No, I'm saving that. I'll probably interlace it between, Empire of Silence and Sun Eater. Yeah, because it's a light read.
It is just phenomenal. and I've spoken about Dungeon Crawler Carl to death, but I was really expecting something silly with Dungeon Crawler Carl, and it is silly. And I was expecting something a bit fluffy, and I was going to bounce off it after one book, and I just found myself absolutely captivated. I don't know how far your wife's reading it too, right? I think she's a little bit further ahead than yourself.
Yeah, she's so real quick. I'm not going to steal the show here, but I posted a video on reading slumps and how I'm kind of just slowly getting through this book right here. The very next day, my wife just does nothing the whole day and just reads all day. And then the next day reads all day. And she was in a reading slump, but I don't have it, it's upstairs, but she ripped through book 3 of Dungeon Crawler Carl and just decimated it and finished it. So talk about just easy breezy depth. We went to a coffee shop. She's reading it, laughing. I look up at her a moment later. She's crying. It's like, what series does that? And it's just very fun. And I understand what she's feeling because I read the first book. So I get it.
But I should also tell you that compared to what's coming, it's like the Harry Potter series, right? Book 1 is good, but by the time you get to book 5, the thing has exploded so much that you look back at book 1, you'll be like, I love that. Not because book 1 is bad, but because the series takes on such depth and significance. And you'll end up crying over like a talking cat. You really will. Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
We have a question here about Wise Man's Fear and the gap between, I'm assuming, book 2, book 3, Dark Lord. That's kind of the heart of this question, right? Does the thought of reading The Wise Man's Fear before the third and final book comes out put you off? It came out in 2011. I guess the idea that the story might not get finished, would that be an accurate interpretation there? That's
my guess.
Yeah.
Reading it didn't put me off at all. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I read it so late. So I read those books in 2021, 2022. So for me, it's only been a 3-year wait. So it hasn't been 10, 15 years, however long.
For me, it's been 10. It's been 10.
Yeah.
2015, I read Wise Man's Fear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I've always had the hot take of I don't think a series needs to be finished for it to be worth reading. Like, I think you should still read a series, even if it's not finished, because people still rank Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire high on their list. And that's probably never going to get finished.
Yeah, I hope so, but I'm not optimistic there. You know, I think you're right. I mean, I'm thinking about kind of classic literature, like the Canterbury Tales. Canterbury Tales didn't get finished, and that's one of the most famous pieces of literature of all time. So on the one hand, I do kind of resonate with this idea that I want that ending. I want it to be complete. I don't think Patrick Rothfuss is I suppose interested, but I don't think that's his focus, or, you know, it's clearly causing him a lot of anxiety. It's probably the way of putting it.
Yeah.
But what I got from reading those 2 books was significant enough that I'm still glad I read them. I don't know if that means I'd recommend them to everybody, but I enjoyed my experience with them enough that I am gratified and grateful for having read them.
That's I think, the greatest reward. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna recommend it all the time, because I think people like a complete trilogy. They like knowing something is finished. They don't want to invest time in something when they know it's been 10 years and hasn't been finished.
Yeah.
Do we have another question? Oh man.
Yeah. Well, it's more a comment on what your Pat Rothfuss comment, and the comment in regards to women. Another thing I could want to add about texts and kind of how women characters bounce off us, especially as guys. I found that sometimes my interpretation of how a woman character is perceived is very different from some of my women friends, both positively and negatively, actually. One of my favorite novels remains House of Leaves. I think House of Leaves is an excellent novel. I kind of read it a bit before it kind of took off this. House of Leaves. Oh, it's very famous. You know, big artsy, A3 size. But I love this book to death. But then my friend Kirsten read it, and this was like a year and a half ago last time I saw her, and she kind of said to me, listen, I bounced off a little bit because have you noticed how that author kind of the women characters are in that book? And you know, I hadn't thought about it. And it did kind of slightly adjust my interpretation of the novel. But at the same time, it goes the other way too, where I've kind of thought, my sister, there's a character in Dungeon Crawler Carl who I won't name, but the first time I read Dungeon Crawler Carl, I thought this character's a bit stupid, and I don't think I quite enjoy what's going on here. And then I spoke to my sister, who's reading Dungeon Crawler Carl. She's caught up now, and for her, this character is her favorite character. So I think our interpretation of text as we read them can change more broadly just based on who we interact with. I think that's one of the joys of reading, to be honest, is having our biases and interpretations changed by other people. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, the discussion you get to have, and the different perspectives, different thoughts. That's why I enjoy when people comment on my videos with a disagreement or just a differing opinion, because that's what it's all about, having discussions. Because if we're just in this constant chamber of same opinions, then we're not going to learn and grow and develop our tastes and just who we are as people. So books, I think, have just been, and BookTube has just been a great thing, because you're able to have those conversations and learn different takes on certain things, which is nice.
You know, I did a collaboration with my friend Anna from Russia with Books, and she kind of started about this.
I didn't get to read that. I'm sorry, or watch that. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. No, it shouldn't be homework. But we did a collaboration on Blood Over Bright Haven, and she changed my interpretation of that book. And I was fascinated. It was supposed to be like a collaborative discussion, but really for about half an hour, I just kind of sat there like this, listening to her, because her thoughts on that text were really brilliant and did transform the way I had seen that. And she was quite nervous to get it out, actually. I hope she doesn't mind me saying it if she watches this, but she, I think, had some trepidation, saying, listen, most people love this aspect of the book. For me, here's why it didn't work. But I really just enjoyed that so much.
Yeah. I think it's always good to have just like those kind of conversations when it's like, let me explain why, and in detail. Yes. I'm not going to shun you. I'm not going to shut you up. I just want to explain why I have a different opinion on this take on this book. And then maybe there's a back and forth.
Well, this would be quite a natural segue to talk about our kind of mini announcement that I've put in the title, which is basically that you are reading. Well, so what happened was basically I sent you an email, Thomas, saying, listen, thank you. I didn't want to do it in the comments because it felt a bit, what's the word, public. I sent you a private message just to say, listen, I really appreciate you kind of being so lovely to me and having this stuff. And we kind of started a conversation, which got off email quite quickly because who uses email? And then you pitched this idea to me of why don't we do some kind of read along together? And then we kind of decided, listen, you're halfway through Empire of Silence. Why don't we change that or develop that into a buddy read? And so our announcement basically is that we're going to go through these books together over, and listen, slow reading is wonderful. And I have too many series ongoing to make it anything more than a slow read. But every couple of months, few months, when we get through a Sun Eater book, we'll have a live stream. We haven't discussed how we're going to do it. Live stream, video conversation.
That's good pacing. So here's book one, everyone. This is Empire of Silence, book one of the Sun Eater series.
This is my copy.
Oh. Are you reading a preview, or do you own a digital copy?
Yeah, I own the digital copy.
Nice.
What I've done was I have splurged on the broken binding, because I know I'm going to read it at some point, and I'm very confident that it's going to be something I really adore, because every friend of mine who has similar literary taste to me has talked about how much they love it. So I spent way too much money, mate, on the broken binding first 3 books. I think it's about
perfect investment. Perfect.
Yeah. So they're waiting for me in Scotland, or they will be.
I love that.
Yeah. So basically what we're going to do is when we're both finished with whatever book in the series it is, we will have, I don't know how we've decided, spoiler free, live stream, whatever, but we will have a proper extended conversation about each of the books as we finish them together, which I am really looking forward to.
Yeah,
especially for the reasons that you've already spoken about, that kind of honesty, that idea of kind of develop our ideas together, and also that idea of reflecting on books in relation to our own lives, which I think often gets lost in the mix. The fact that we can relate these texts to what we're going through ourselves and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Gosh, that's a whole topic in and of itself that I'm going to try to not go off on, but I'm looking forward to it, because it's nice to read along with someone.
Yes.
Wheel of Time I read alongside with my sister and my uncle.
Amazing.
I read it in like a few months because she's just a freak. But my uncle, he is still on the last book. He's almost done. So it's just been nice to have that conversation and kind of that accountability, but also more just encouragement. Like, oh, let me try to catch up. So I'll read with you. And oh, I haven't been reading this week. I should really crank out some pages. So being able to read with you, an English teacher, come on, that's going to be great. So it'll be fun to actually get your thoughts on the language, the diction, the writing style, prose, or whatever, about Rockio, you know, because he's really good.
How far through are you?
212 pages.
So that's kind of maybe a third through?
I guess so.
Not bad. I'm on page 25.
Hey, take your time, please, because I haven't been reading at all. I've been playing video games.
I really appreciate, and I want to talk about video games with you, but I really appreciate that you said, and I think it was your reading slump video, I read 2 pages this week. And I think that's how you started the video. I've read 2 pages this week. And there was no shame, and there was no, what's the word? Guilt in that statement. I have read 2 pages this week, and that's fine. I read a chapter.
Yeah, the chapter is 4 pages long.
Yeah. Lots of enthusiasm for Sun Eater in the comments, which I'm really happy to see. Hi, Callisto.
Oh, gosh, I haven't been in. What's happening? Are we missing a lot?
No, I've been firing them up on screen as they've been coming, or I've been trying to. Apologies if I missed your comment.
Oh, yeah, I'm trying to pay attention to you, but also I need to. Malazan, yeah, a lot of Malazan.
Slay, you are braver than me. I'd say about half the stuff I've ordered to Kuwait has come. I'm in Kuwait right now. For those of you who don't know, and ordering stuff. My wife accidentally left her. I can't remember exactly what the circumstances, but when we moved to Kuwait, she left her wedding ring in our old room in our old house, and it's not because our marriage is on the rocks. She just left it. I can't remember why. But so we had to get it shipped to Kuwait. And they're basically got stuck in a warehouse somewhere about 5-10 miles away, and we had to call someone to go and fish through these packages to get it for us. So yeah, Slay, you're a braver man than me ordering those to Kuwait, but I hope they come.
My gosh, yeah. Speaking of rings, I had to get a pacemaker replacement, emergency pacemaker replacement 2 years ago. And right before that was happening, I had ordered the ring for my girlfriend at the time, my now wife. And I'm literally about to go into surgery, and I get an email saying, hey, the ring's looking beautiful. I'm going to send it off. I'm like, no, you're not, because I got to go into surgery. And then I had to delete all the information of rings, texts to other people. Yeah, that was wild. Thankfully, she didn't find out, and that ring barely arrived in time for the planned proposal. So,
did your girlfriend know that the proposal was coming shortly, or was it a complete surprise?
Oh, it was a complete surprise.
Yeah. Can I
She-
ask how you did it?
Huh?
Can I ask how you did it?
Well, yeah. Gosh, I'm trying to remember. It's been a while, but basically I spend like a month and a half, recovering from surgery. Cause when they put leads in you, you can't raise your arms, and I had to shoot weddings too. So it was wild, but basically I try to get the ring shipped overnight. But it took a whole week. So every day I'm just like, hey, where is it? Where is it? So we had it planned, I think, for Friday or Saturday. Because I had her family looped in. I had our best friends looped in. We were going to go to the pizza place where we met, and I'd have all of them surprise her. So basically all those details, whatever, the ring arrived. And we pretended that this is all over the place, but basically a fake photo shoot. A mutual friend of ours did a photo shoot with us.
Yeah.
And then I ended up proposing in the parking lot where I asked for her phone number. And then,
that's
nice. Long story short, it's a wild story, and my brain's all over the place. So that happened. It was beautiful. We got it on photo. perfect. Went over to the pizza place.
First
Family's
date.
there. Huh?
First date or first meeting, first encounter, I should say.
First encounter, first meeting, and the rest is history. So it was perfect.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Most stressful week of my life waiting for that thing, because trying to get everyone in the loop, be like, hey, be at this pizza place at this time.
Yeah.
And I had to give them the green light, be like, hey, the ring hasn't arrived yet, so the plan may not happen. And
just after surgery as well.
Pretty soon, about less than a month after. So it was exhausting.
So, for me, talking about spouse holding your hands, I kind of did the opposite. Right, my wife and I were doing long distance because obviously she was in the States and I was in Scotland at the time, and then shortly after moved to Japan. So it was proper long distance. So I kind of decided, like, listen, either need to propose to this woman, or I can't be stringing her along long distance for like 3 or 4 years. That's just not fair to anybody. So I basically said to her, listen, how would you feel about me proposing in the near future? and she kind of goes, yeah, okay. And I go, okay. And she's like, we're both in Scotland at this time because she came to visit me. And so she was like, how about we just take a walk down? There's a famous jewelry street in Glasgow. And so she's like, how about we walk down this jewelry lane? I forget the name of it. And you can kind of signal to me which ring you think I would like. So that when it comes to ordering the ring, you'll know my taste. I'm like, okay, that's fun. So we're walking down the street, and I hadn't even proposed at this point, but basically, yeah. So we walk down the street, and I'm like, how about that one? She's like, guess again, mate. I'm like, okay. I'm like, can you tell me what I did wrong? And she's like, yeah, okay. So this and this and this and this. These are the criteria I like for a wedding ring. I'm like, okay. I've got this. So we walk a bit further down the street, and I point to another ring, and she's like, no. And we go all the way down the street, and this poor woman, like, I was just looking at her face, and she's like, nope, wrong, and not in a mean way, not in a commanding way, but she's just like, listen, you're not quite getting the my fashion sense here. And eventually we get to the end of the street, and she's like, David, you see that ring there? And she's like, I'm like, yeah. She's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, great. And thankfully it was a very cheap ring as well. So yeah, I love her to pieces doubly. But basically, what I've said to her, listen, when you come visit me the first time in Japan, I'm just going to propose. Just so you know, you're going to get off the plane and I will be there with a ring. So for me, it was kind of the height of disorganization, in the sense of, I hope I didn't spoil the magic of it, but I almost felt like she knew every step of that process. It was almost like we kind of got engaged months before we formally got engaged, because she knew it the whole way through. Like a formal agreement beforehand. Yeah, like a betrothal. I'm seeing lots of comments. Shipping to the US is mental. I've bought Way of Adan as well. Thomas, I think you would really enjoy The Way of Adan by Philip Chase and the Adan trilogy. I've only read the first book, but he is really. I've been hearing that that book pop up in my algorithm. Yeah. It's Are you familiar with Philip Chase? What? Are you familiar with Philip Chase? Yes, I am. I love his stuff. Yeah, so it's his book, and the first book is called The Way of Adan. He was very kind. Okay. When I had 70 subscribers, he was kind enough to come onto my channel and do a wee interview. Yeah, I saw that. I was like, what a guy. Yeah. He's lovely, really lovely, and his book is also really magnificent. He's definitely worth keeping an eye on. I've only read that first book, but I believe he has book 4 Within This World coming out. Wild Darkness Gathers, I believe it's called, book 4, book 5. You will not find a nicer man. He absolutely deserves all of the love and the praise he gets. Yeah, he's been one of the guys I've been watching. He's a guy you can't help but listen to, and really appreciate his opinions and kind of just his knowledge. It also comes back to honesty. You're saying of this word honesty. He strikes me as very genuine, and he will not ever trash an author, but you also get the sense from him that he is giving you his honest thoughts, his honest inclinations towards a topic, which I really appreciate. And it's something I'm trying to emulate myself as well, because especially with the amount of books I'm reading, I'm always very conscious that, okay, authors can take the criticism, but that way he has of being honest about the books he's enjoying and saying if he's not enjoying something, but doing it in such a lovely, honest, forthright manner is really admirable as well. Yeah. You don't want to come off like, like you're on a high horse, and you may not like something, but there is a way of, okay, like letting that out honestly and nicely, and I guess constructive. You had a nice comment from Slay about your experience in surgery, I believe, and I want to make sure you saw that.
Oh, wow.
And in the meantime, Sebastian, I'll tell you that I love a critical dragon. I think that man's brilliant. AP Canavan.
Is this another YouTuber?
Yeah, so sorry, I didn't mean to split us down the middle there.
I'm looking these folks up.
AP Canavan, his channel is called The Critical Dragon. I believe he does work for Steven Erikson in the Malazan series, and he's also I forget the official word of it, the editor for Philip Chase, basically. Developmental editor.
Okay.
He is, oh my goodness, what I really appreciate about him is that he can hit record, give a lecture for an hour, seemingly with very minimal notes, and it will just be brilliant. It will just be some of the strongest narrative analysis that you will find on YouTube, just like that, just out of his brain. I think he has a very devoted fan base or following of people who really enjoy that stuff, and I'm one of them. Yeah, especially for Malazan. He has a lot of Malazan content.
Very cool.
Yeah, developmental editor. Yeah, thanks.
I just subbed to him. That is so cool.
He's phenomenal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Again, it comes back to what kind of I wanted at a BookTube, which is to kind of find these people and interact with these people who are so knowledgeable, and are some are erudite and skillful communicators, and some are able just to articulate their own personal experience, and some are just really, really passionate about books.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Erikson's first reader, says Sebastian. Sebastian, I get the sense that you're also a fellow big Malazan fan. But yeah.
Yeah, I love this. I sometimes get a little intimidated by various booktubers who are, I guess, would be under the category of philosophy and just those deep thinkers and big words. And I'm just this average Joe kind of guy who uses amazing and awesome and exciting and just these simple words. So I always get like, a little overwhelmed, but or intimidated really. But it's nice when you're able to, find out like, hey, they're normal people too, and they're nice. Yeah. There's nothing to be intimidated about.
I also really enjoyed your video, and we both kind of on the same week kind of moved to video games a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. So you had this review of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Which I love that game to pieces. And I was actually, the week you posted it, really considering booting up Tears of the Kingdom, which I know your favorite game is Breath of the Wild, but I've had Tears of the Kingdom sitting on my Switch for about 2 years now, and I've never quite had the time to pick it up.
Wow.
I loved my experience with Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. What captured you with it? And how soon were you just, this is it? This is amazing.
I love that openness and exploration. I think I don't play video games as much anymore. Certainly on big TVs, I have some visual difficulties, which make kind of staring at screens for a long time, like distant screens, quite hard. But I'm okay with my Switch, and I'm okay with my Steam Deck, and that's kind of how I tend to operate. But when I used to play video games a lot more, I used to really enjoy narrative in story. And I still really do. Like Red Dead Redemption 2 is just phenomenal. That game is the only game that's actually made me cry. Well, yeah, it is a book, isn't it?
Might as well be.
Yeah. And I enjoyed the Mass Effect trilogy, and I enjoyed these big, heavy narrative-based games that I would say can do what books do really, really effectively. But what I've found as I've gotten a little bit older, and you and I are of an age, so I wonder if we're kind of similar on this, is I really enjoy, first of all, games that I've played from my past. So I made this YouTube video on audiobooks and games to audiobook too. And I was noticing as I was compiling that list, I was basically choosing the greatest hits from David's life. The Lego Star Wars games I really enjoyed when I was 11, for example. So that there's that facet to it. But what I've also discovered with video games, I really enjoy open world video games. For example, I really like the open world Assassin's Creed games. Okay. There's lots to say about them that are justifiably not very good, but one thing those games do really well is you just have a horse and you have the world and you can just ride out and explore this historical tapestry. I think they do that very well. The Elder Scrolls, same thing. Very, very, very popular games, but for a reason, because Elder Scrolls Oblivion is my favorite, and I really hope we do get that remaster that's being teased. You walk out of that dungeon in Elder Scrolls Oblivion, I don't know if you played it, and you just can do anything. And that I guess the best way of characterizing that is a sense of wonder. And I think Breath of the Wild captures that sense of wonder incredibly well, because you have the little tutorial island at the start, or I guess it's more like a plateau.
Yeah.
And then you get off it. And there really is this realization, there is nothing stopping me walking to the end of the map and just seeing how far I can get. I can see on my map, there's a volcano over there. I'm going to go explore it. Or I'm going to continue to hang out on this plateau for an hour and a half and experiment with what fire does to, I don't know, this ice pick. Just bash them together and see what happens. And there's that deep sense of wonder in the Breath of the Wild game and in the Tears of the Kingdom game that as much as I've seen of it, I've seen a little bit of it, that really I find quite magnetizing. And that's why I really enjoyed my time with it. The story is shallow, at least in my opinion. It's just all about that openness to the game that I really adore.
Yeah.
What about you?
I know you're yeah. I mean, it's that very moment. You leave the I think it's the Shrine of Resurrection or something like that, and there's no tutorial. You talk to the old man, and you're just like, "Oh, there's apples on these trees. Okay. Oh, there's a forest over here. Yeah. Is that a creature? Oh, it's a boar moving around. Okay. What's that over there? There's smoke shooting up over there. Well, let me go. It's just something sparkly over here. Mushrooms. Like, it's just. I was captured right away. I was like, this is everything I want in an open world game. Because there's so many open world games that are very just open for the sake of being open. But this is truly there's purpose behind it being open, and that's the main theme. That's the story. The player's freedom, and someone commented on the video, just curiosity.
And the word wonder, I think, is
wonder and
wonderful, not wonderful, but literally full of wonder. They kind of encapsulate, and I think I've said this about something else in a previous YouTube video. As I'm in my 30s, I'm constantly looking for things that make me feel like I'm a kid and it's Saturday morning.
Same.
And I don't mean like going downstairs and playing the video games, but I mean when it's a summer's morning and you don't have school and you wake up and the day is just this big mushy ball of whatever you want it to be. And listen, you could stay in your room all day and eat toast. You could just maybe walk out your front door and see how far you can get. Water balloon fight with your mates. Whatever you want that day to be is what that day will be. And I'm constantly kind of looking for that hit, I guess, as I'm getting older, that sense. And Breath of the Wild does it incredibly well.
I agree. You put it perfectly. That's what I'm trying to look for too in games. Yeah. And I think Breath of the Wild and even bits of Tears of the Kingdom did that. Tears was great. But there is just that simplicity and that, I guess, nostalgia of Breath of the Wild. And it's hard to find that, but not impossible, in video games nowadays. But there is something about Nintendo, how they're able to capture that childlike wonder and magic in a game. And I think Super Mario and Breath of the Wild are just prime examples.
I've been having. I want to draw your attention to all the kind comments you're getting, by the way,
Goodness.
Before we move on.
Oh, so I'll say what we do.
I think it was about you talking about what you're bringing to the space and maybe not feeling, what's the word, academic enough. And yeah, I agree with what everyone's saying.
Okay. Wow. Thank you, Sebastian. Yeah, I know nothing about any of. Okay. Yeah.
We'll do one on yours so you can work it out. It's much more ergonomic than you think it is. Really.
I'm so scared.
It's listen, I did one with Jake from Nerd Level Rising, who, if you don't know, he's incredibly awesome and lovely as well. And I said the same thing to him. I'm like, listen, I don't know how to live stream. That sounds terrifying. And he said, listen, I'll walk you through it. And it's much easier than you'd imagine. Dr. Chase is an inspiration. Yep. Head trip game Soma. I have heard of Soma. Do you know the game I used to love as a kid? Age of Empires 2. I was terrible at it. But something about I think historical stuff. I think one thing I'm realizing a lot more as well, having started my channel, I don't think sci-fi and fantasy are the sibling genres that everyone talks about. I think fantasy and history are the sibling genres that everyone should be kind of linking together. Because the more I think about it, I think those are the two subgenres that are intertwined. This kind of sense of an alternate world, exploring characters in a different cultural
Or they
setting.
should be intertwined. I feel like there's a lot of modern fantasy now that just, we're going to slap fantasy on it for the sake of it. But really, in reality, that this is what the story is about. These are what the characters are, and we'll just throw fantasy as a background. But, you know, fantasy and history, yeah.
Have you read any Guy Gavriel Kay?
I don't even know who that is.
So I read my first GGK last year. I was on vacation. I was on vacation in India and Egypt for a week, and I had to bring one book, and I brought Song for Arbonne because everyone talks about Guy Gavriel Kay as the master of historically laced fantasy. His books are set in other worlds, but really they're not. Really, they're kind of just Earth with a twist. His stuff is phenomenal, and it's kind of similar in terms of that exploration of character and language that I think you would really enjoy. I mean, I've already told you privately, I think you would gel very well with Robin Hobb as well. But GGK is someone I think for you to be looking out for.
Okay. So what? Do I just type in GGK or what's the
Guy Gavriel Kay? If you type in Song for Arbonne, Arbonne is the one I read, and I've only read one. Okay. But it was a magnificent read, and it was an instant 5-star for me.
Okay. Yeah. I love when there is like history and I think you'll enjoy Empire of Silence because there's a lot of callbacks to real history. And
yes.
Have you heard of the Book of the New Sun or Book of the New Sun?
Gene Wolfe.
Yeah.
I've not read it, but I've heard of it.
Same. This Rocchio, that's his, like, and Tolkien are like two of his biggest inspirations. As well as Dune and Star Wars, but I think Empire of Silence and the Sun Eater is very much like sci fantasy and like just blending of those two, and I think it makes it a little more tangible for me because sci-fi is so truly feels otherworldly because you're dealing with other planets and. I think the visual aspect of it, because when you think fantasy, you think castles, taverns, forests. For me, my brain is able to just paint that picture right away. But when it comes to sci-fi, there's so many different, when you say spaceship, what could that look like? That could look like there's 500 different spaceships out there. So it's very hard for me to visual. But when there's fantasy aspects to it, I'm able to kind of walk in a little easier.
Do you know what I noticed about, oh my goodness, Empire of Silence? Because this is the thing with not having the book in front. When you're reading it digitally, you forget the title of the book, which is awful. One thing I really enjoyed about the first 25, 30 pages, and that's all that I've got so far, is how thick that atmosphere is already. And I haven't read any further. So I don't want to speak out of turn. I've barely started the series, but one thing I noticed from page 1 is how thick that atmosphere is, which I would say is quite unusual for sci-fi. I find that fantasy is able to kind of create an atmosphere much more quickly. And sometimes sci-fi is the thing that falls to the side as you're trying to kind of tell a bigger story or kind of get those concepts across. But one thing that Rocky really impressed me with is how keenly you feel that sense of place. So fast. Hi, Chance, by the way. Saying hi in the comments. Hi, Chance. How you doing?
Oh, Chance. Yes. He got the broken binding, I think, of Sun Eater.
That company is doing things to my wallet.
I'm really sad I missed out on the diamond edition of the first book. Apparently it was like a Kickstarter, and now it's like going for 4 figures, and it's really hard to find now because it's limited.
I was the same with their what is it? It's the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee, which I don't know if you've read.
No.
Really, really wonderful trilogy.
Okay.
Self-contained. People kind of call it like almost Asian-inspired, a mafia story, which is true, but it's not really doing it justice. The Broken Binding have the most beautiful trilogy editions of that series.
Look at this.
And I actually and I sold out, that one and done. So I actually reached out to Broken Binding through their contact information, said, look, is there any chance you have any spare copies kicking around of this trilogy? Because I would adore. And no, they said, sorry, it's done. It's we're not reprinting it. There's no chance, basically. I don't know if that's just a line they say, but those things are beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, when you have like the sides just painted beautifully,
Yep.
it's nice. But then you just like, I don't want to touch it. You know, this
That's true. Yeah.
I can touch and bend. I can spill coffee on it. I can take it wherever I want. But you know, I just don't want to touch those nice additions.
So I had 3 weeks last year. We were in Bosnia. Me and my family. We had a bit of time to be before we had to head back to Kuwait. And Kuwait in the summer, I don't know if you know, it's 50 degrees Celsius, which I don't know, is stupid temperature. Slay, if you're in here still, tell me what 50 degrees Celsius is in Fahrenheit. It was egregiously hot. So we don't go back for the summer. So we had 2-3 weeks. We're in Bosnia. It's close enough and it's cheap enough that we could kind of hang out there. And all I had with me was a copy of Don Quixote, 1,300 pages. And it was the most raggedy, torn up copy when I got it. And literally the book was in 2 halves when I'd finished with it. And I have I wasn't the hugest fan of Don Quixote. I think it basically kind of repeats itself quite a lot, which is kind of what it's supposed to be. But my experience of reading that book aesthetically, I guess, was actually enhanced by how awful this book looked. There's something quite nice at the same time about having a book that's falling apart in your hands.
Yeah.
And those are the books that you treasure at the same time.
Yeah. And it tells a story. You know, it's like when you go to a used bookstore and you get a used copy of something, it's like this was in the hands of various writers. I mean, readers, and
yes,
I'm the next one, and it's kind of fun, you know. What are your thoughts on annotating, like writing in a book and underlining?
I love that other people do it. I've never done it myself.
Same.
I'm wondering, so I'm going to be doing a reread of Malazan later this year. And I'm wondering if that is the time, because that's my favorite series of all time, to actually put a nice layer desk set up and actually go through it and make it quite special. The only book I've actually annotated cover to cover is the Bible, actually. And one Cormac McCarthy book.
Which Cormac book?
It was The Passenger. It was his newest one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No, it wasn't. Tell a lie. It was Stella Maris. It was the companion book. And I thought this book is so dense and it's so layered. And I will gloss over this if I don't actually put pen to it and go through it properly.
Okay. Yeah.
What about you?
I would do that for my reread of Wheel of Time. But if ever I have a child and, you know, I want to show them fantasy and be like, hey, here you go. Here's Eye of the World. I had a commenter say that their 8-year-old daughter is reading Eye of the World. That's pretty cool. So I hope to inspire a young generation of readers in my family with that series. So I probably won't be writing in books unless it's, I don't know, like a personal journey of rereading something, but we'll see.
Have you heard of the book S by J.J. Abrams and Doug Dorst? It's also called Ship of Theseus. It's kind of got 2 different titles.
I have never heard of it.
So what it is I need to show it to you, I think. Apologies for the radio silence as I look something up on my phone. What this book is, opinions vary about the quality of the book, but what it
Oh no, did I lose you? Did we lose him? The stream may be over, y'all. Oh no, what do we do? What do I do, guys? I'm gonna see if he's messaging me or anything. Oh no. Hey everyone. I'm so nervous. Well, he'll be back. So let's
Do you know what I did?
There he is.
Do you know what I did? Mate, this is the high quality YouTube production that you have signed on to collaborate with on. Do you know what I did?
What'd you do?
So I was going to, oh, this is embarrassing. I'm going red. I wanted to make sure that no notifications from anyone came up on my phone to show you the picture. And I put myself on airplane mode, not even thinking about it.
Oh.
and I'm hotspotting myself.
Yeah.
So I'm just happy that the feed was still going, because I thought that maybe the feed would have.
Yeah, thankfully. I mean, I would have had to carry on. I was getting scared there. I was getting really red. I'm still red. Okay,
Listen,
you're mentioning a book that
Yes, let me show it to you.
I'm getting a list here of just all sorts of suggestions.
This book, I don't know if you'd call it an art piece or if you'd call it a genuine text that's worth reading, but it's certainly, you cannot say it's not very interesting. Because what it is, let's see if you can see that there. Can you see that?
Ship.
Right. Basically what it is, the book is, so you buy this book at the store and you open it up and you turn the page and you have the story in standard font. And then you'll also notice as you open the book, there will be annotations in red.
So it's like House of Leaves.
Yes. And then also there'll be annotations in blue, because the premise of this book is that as you read the story is that there's actually two real people that are also just fictional characters who are reading the book along with you and annotating and having this discussion about the book. Well, again, a bit cerebral. And I don't know if it's for everyone. I don't know if it does it very successfully necessarily, but it's a really interesting thought experiment about playing with what the text can be. So you have these two characters passing notes back and forth, having never met. I think they put it on like a library shelf and pass it that way. But it does create this very interesting cocktail of a book that's worth looking up at the very least.
Okay. Well, that sounds quite interesting. It's, it sounds like an experience that
sounds like homework. Yeah.
Yeah. I House of Leaves is on my list of books I want to read in my lifetime, and that looks like some homework with problem solving and really finding out plot lines and truth and reality and all that. And I flipped through that book, and my gosh,
it's good fun though.
Yeah,
it is a project.
Looks like a lot of fun. I'm
catching up on the comments now. Thank you for everyone who,
I'm scared that we're just ignoring people, and I don't want to.
No, we're fine. We're the cavemen discovering fire here. 122 in Fahrenheit is 50 degrees Celsius. So that's what you're contending with a Kuwaiti summer.
You're kidding.
Slay, verify that for me. That's kind of where it gets to in the summer. It's mental. You can't step outside. Book of the New Sun is great, but I strongly recommend GGK. GGK, phenomenal. Yep.
Okay.
I like a book that you can see has been read. I agree. Another one I had was Nightmares and Dreamscapes by Stephen King. It's a short story collection. It's about 900 pages of short stories.
Okay.
And I got this battered 50 yen copy from a bookshop in Tokyo. Like the spine had already fallen off. But I had a wonderful time with that. And I think I enjoyed it more because it was this beaten up, shabby, raggedy thing.
I feel like if it's an older book too, I would want a used copy. I've got a handful of used copies of King books, and it's great.
Are you a King fan?
I am. I started, I dove into his books last July. First book was Misery, and it's my favorite book of his so far.
Mm-hmm.
I've read Pet Sematary, Salem's Lot, the Bill Hodges trilogy, and I think that's it. Oh, and The Outsider, and I DNF that. I like his classic works more.
The Shining is phenomenal.
Holds up. I'm saving that, and It and The Stand, saving those for a special time. But I might read The Shining this year. I think
it's pretty short. It's 400 pages or something. It's not. It's not a big total.
It's not bad at all, and I think King is phenomenal.
Yeah, I would agree.
He does such a good job with, especially if you're looking at yourself as like a writer and you want to approach writing and try that out. He makes it feel like I can do this.
Yes,
and not saying that his work is so juvenile and just like easy. It's approachable, but it's not rocket science. His work is very much just good characters, doesn't have to be poetic, and high educational, I'm lost for words right now, but it's not above anyone's, pay grade in a way. It's very
consumable.
Yeah, digestible.
Yeah.
Um,
You're very good for an audiobook. Have you ever wanted, I know you said in a comment that you tend to podcast more than audiobook, but if you're ever looking to do an audiobook, Stephen
yeah,
King's a great way to go.
I
Yeah.
I actually I read the first book of the Bill Hodges trilogy, but then I did the last two in audiobook, and I thought Will Patton,
Hmm.
phenomenal performer. So I'll audiobook if it's a good performer and
Yeah.
enjoy it that way. But I'm a tangible kind of guy. I like to, have it in my hands and read the words. But yeah, King's great. What do you think? I know you did a tier list of his work.
I've read about 50 of his books now, 60, something like that. So
Okay.
I used to work when I was in uni. I used to work in a coffee shop to kind of make some money. I didn't make very much money, but my boss at the time, she saw that I was reading Game of Thrones. This was kind of where I started to read fantasy, and it was just before I actually left for the States. Going back to our earlier conversation, she said to me, "Have you read The Dark Tower?" And I said, "No, I'm reading." I probably said something a bit smug, to be honest. Something like, I'm reading Game of Thrones right now, and I'm really enjoying that. So, and she very graciously kind of said to me, "Listen, if you're into fantasy, The Dark Tower is the way to go." And as soon as I finished my shift, I went to Waterstones, which is our Barnes and Noble in Scotland. And I bought The Gunslinger, which is book one. And everyone tells you book one you have to be careful with, because actually it's book two of The Dark Tower where things get going. And I do agree with that to some extent, but I still think The Gunslinger is a phenomenal book. I ate that series up in about 2 or 3 months, 7, 8 big books. It's about the length of Harry Potter if you kind of put it on a shelf.
Yeah.
And I consume those books.
Yeah.
And I love with Stephen King that everything that he writes is deeply interconnected and interwoven. It's basically one shared universe, one shared multiverse.
It's a multiverse.
Yeah, and that really that tickles a part of my brain. I quite enjoy seeing all those connections. And you can go onto Google and you can look up Stephen King flowchart. You can see how it all kind of interlaces together very organically, because he just kind of is making up as he's
There's
gone.
like an extended reading order too.
Yeah. He deserves his place in the fantasy pantheon. And if you haven't read The Dark Tower, I don't think you mentioned that one as part of the
I've read
series
the first book and I blazed through it in 2 days. But I was a youngin'. I would say I'm still young, but like where my brain was at, I just blew through it, didn't appreciate it. So
yes, you should, when you find time in your TBR. Oh, I love that series to death, and it's kind of like Dungeon Crawler Carl in the sense that it's just endlessly, dizzyingly inventive. You can tell he's having fun.
Love that.
There were probably with Stephen King some substances going on in the making of this series, but just fabulous.
Okay.
Finn is asking you, and I want to make sure we address the questions about any King books that you want to check out in the near future.
Well, I have all the books that I want to eventually read. I have Doom McKee. I have.
It's a great book.
The Stand, a lot of the big chunkers.
11/22/63. We've got a comment here. That's
yes,
a really,
I have
really
that. I actually picked that up at a coffee shop. They said, "Take a book, leave a book." I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to take this nice hardcover of 11/22/63, and I've gotten that book in my comments all the time from folks.
It's fabulous.
I will read it.
Fabulous.
I will.
King goes up another, what's the word? Flight of stairs, one order of magnitude greater with that book. I think it's the only book he's said, like, I've done research for this book, and it clearly comes across. It is wonderful. Just the attention to detail in that book, you feel like you're in the 50s and 60s with 11/22/63.
Yeah, that's a big reason I want to read his books, is to feel in the 50s and 60s.
A sense of place. Yeah.
I think he captures an era so well. He writes characters so well, and it's immersive in a different way.
Yes.
Fantasy's immersive in a way, and sci-fi and whatnot, but the way he writes real characters, real feelings, real words, but then kind of throws in a little bit of that sci-fi element. And I think, even though I haven't read much of his work, I feel like he is less of a horror writer and more of just a good character writer.
I would concur. I think I said that in my video,
just
actually.
a good storyteller.
And the best part of Stephen King's books often aren't the horror moments. It's actually when you're just sitting there with the characters, almost having a slice of life. I read Fairy Tale last month, and I'll be honest, I didn't really vibe with the last 2/3 of Fairy Tale. I thought that it kind of went off the deep end a little bit, which is a shame, but you can't win them all, especially when you have like 80 books out. But what Fairy Tale really does very effectively in its first 250 pages is it paints a slice of life story that feels genuine and authentic and difficult. There's a kind of an issue with alcoholism and the main character's father at the start of the book, which is very personal to King. I know that. And it does that in such a way that doesn't feel like he's using that suffering just to get kind of cheap emotion.
Yeah.
It feels very authentic. And I think he is the best, one of the best character writers in the game. And the other day when I was reading Fairy Tale, I was looking up Stephen King, and I didn't realize how he's kind of getting on a bit. I believe he might be approaching 80, or maybe he's at 80. And he's still going. He's still writing 2 books a year, which is phenomenal.
It's pretty amazing. I still have such a backlog of his work to catch up on, so I'm a little out of the loop with, his modern stuff. I think the only bit was the Bill Hodges trilogy and Outsider.
Yeah.
I felt like his plotting and pacing in Salem's Lot, Pet Sematary, Misery were just perfect. Whereas The Outsider and the last 2 books in the Bill Hodges trilogy were just a little too much telling.
Yes.
And not enough just showing and just kind of being in the moment.
Yeah.
I do want to read Carrie. I think that'll be the next King book I read, because that could be a couple days to dive into.
He was like 24 when he wrote that as well. Super young. 24 when he wrote that, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the story is that he wrote it, threw it in the trash, and then I think his wife took it out of the trash or something. He's like, what, this is amazing. And then somehow that's the beginning.
Do you know, he also has a really good book on writing, literally called On Writing. I don't know. Yeah. Fantastic. And again, it's very personal. It's 50% nuts and bolts and 50% autobiography. It's fabulous as well. I think he wrote it just after he got into that kind of infamous car accident as well. But yeah, we have a question from Miss Mysterious, which I'm going to let you handle, because I'm going to have to go and grab my laptop charger, because I'm flirting with danger here. I think I'm going to get cut off again. 2 seconds.
Okay. Hard or soft magic systems? Well, so hard is like you got Sanderson, and then soft is very ambiguous, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm soft. I'm also in the way of just like, hey, it's okay if this wizard can just do magic, and that's the only explanation. I don't need to know the inner workings of, flow charts. I don't need to be reminded of the magic system.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it just being there. And I'm also okay with it serving the story, because I think it allows for the reader to be surprised and not expect, something of a character, like, hey, why didn't he cast this spell? He has that in the back pocket. I've watched it on this table. That's why I like Name of the Wind so much, and Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time is definitely hard, but also not, because it's very elusive, and the whole story of Wheel of Time and the magic system is very much just like kind of touched upon here and there.
Wheel of Time is kind of more like the structure is hard, but actually the content of the magic system itself is soft, if that makes any sense.
Yes, I agree. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Like you've got it structured, but the way it's executed, the way it's shared to the reader, it's very much ambiguous. It's not in your face all the time, and it's kind of surprising. And I like that. What about you?
I think dead air. I think that hard magic can be done well. The danger with hard magic systems is that it often becomes the story.
Agreed.
I really enjoy Brandon Sanderson. I'm actually thinking about making a Brandon Sanderson video, like some controversial takes that I have about him, because I enjoy him for what he is. And there's some things I think that, but the best of Brandon Sanderson is he takes these hard magic systems and he uses them to create some kind of interesting or innovative twist. And there's certain stories that are coming in my mind that I won't spoil that does that. But often, sometimes it just feels like he is, and I can't remember, someone said this to me. I think it might have been Marie Mullaney in my interview with her, where she, forgive me, it was someone else, but I think it was Marie, who, by the way, is a fantastic author herself. And I'd encourage you to check that out on my channel, that interview with her. But she kind of said that often Brandon Sanderson feels like you're watching someone else playing a video game.
Yeah.
And that is also the pitfall of hard magic, where you're watching someone else play with these toys that the author has created, but it almost feels a bit distant. It's like watching your older brother play Star Wars or something like that.
Yeah.
So generally, I would go towards soft.
Yeah.
But it depends on the story that is important at the time, I guess.
Yeah, and I feel like when I'm being reminded constantly about the hard confines of the magic system, it takes me out of the story, out of the character, out of feeling in this moment with that character.
Yes.
I had a conversation with another booktuber privately on Discord. It's Midnight Chronicler. Great guy.
Oh, yes. I love that channel. Yeah.
Yeah. He completely underrated. If you're watching, please go check out his stuff. Yeah. He does stuff a lot different, but we had a conversation about Sanderson, and I have my opinions, but I don't feel like I have the right to share them fully yet until I've given more of his work a shot. I've tried Mistborn. I've read the last 3 books of Wheel of Time. That's it. I feel like,
sorry to cut you off. How did you find that the last 3 books of the Wheel of Time were compared to what came before? Because that's an interesting point.
If you, Mike's book reviews has said this, and I agree, and that's kind of how I feel. If you put them side by side, I would assume Jordan is just continuing.
Okay.
It's just quicker paced. I think it's really well done. Sure, there's some similes that are very Sanderson-like, you know, very much just, I can't come up with an example, but it's just like, okay, all right, Sanderson. But I feel like I need to read at least book 1 and 2 of Stormlight before I can provide a true opinion of Sanderson. My only real experience with him is Mistborn, and not to to go back to hard and soft magic systems. Mistborn was just so on the nose with the magic system, and it's just like the pushing, the pulling, the pushing, the pulling. It's like, I don't need to be reminded about that. Yes, I know the work is very much early for Sanderson, but it took me out.
There's also a thing I think with Sanderson where I don't like to dogpile on Sanderson too much. I know I brought him up because obviously he's kind of a bit of an nadir right now with kind of reactions to his latest book.
Yeah.
One thing I often find with hard magic, I'll just say this in general, is that I struggle to keep up. I don't know if that's because I'm an idiot, but Mistborn, Vin flared Pewter. I'm like, wait, which one's Pewter again? I have to go to the back of the book. Yeah, okay, that one's Pewter. Back to it. And I find that mentally it actually becomes more taxing than something like, we mentioned Malazan earlier. I kind of find that easier because there is that ambiguity, and you can just sort of vibe with it based on the experience and what the characters are portraying.
I agree.
Yes.
When I'm not feeling anything toward the pushing and pulling. What I felt was, this is cool. I feel like I'm playing Dishonored.
Yes, exactly.
Like, exactly. And it's funny that like Dishonored came out in 2011 or 2010, and Mistborn was 2007, 2008. And I'm like, did you guys read that? Because it's literally the vibe of the city, of all that, what I got. But whereas like in Name of the Wind and even Wheel of Time, more so in Name of the Wind and The Last Unicorn, I felt that magic. You could feel it because it's feeling. And that is going to stick with me more than pushing, pulling. That's the only example I can provide.
Say again?
That's the only example I can provide. I know I may be ill-informed because I haven't read much of Sanderson, so I will hold off on the rest of my opinions until I read more of his work.
I would say that, well, I'm going to say two things. First thing I'm going to say is that I actually find that Brandon Sanderson is, I think his second Mistborn series is better than the first because he's laid all that groundwork and it
Okay.
doesn't seem to be as heavy. But the second thing I want to move you on, because we just mentioned Midnight Chronicler and guess who's just shown up in our chat? And I don't know if they were aware that we were shouting them out about 5 minutes ago.
Nice.
How's it going?
Dude, Midnight is amazing. Yeah, we nerded out for a whole hour and a half, 2 hours on Discord, and it was great. We're gonna do a little collab video coming up soon.
I've been watching some of his stuff as well. Yeah, Sterling. It's such a good thing. Like starting BookTube, it's one thing I'm watching it from a distance, but actually being able to interact with people as well and kind of have those discussions live. It's everything I was looking for.
Yeah.
I'm just going through some of these comments very quickly. Dungeon Crawler Carl, I love. Dungeon Crawler Carl came out of nowhere and just came into one of my top 3 series of all time. I often tell people Malazan, Hyperion, Dungeon Crawler Carl. Those are currently the 3 that kind of stay at the top for me.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah. And they're very different. Thomas Ligotti, I've not read any of, Sebastian. If you could type a wee comment and kind of pitch Thomas Ligotti to me, that would be amazing. Fairy Tale was strange. I don't know if I'm in the minority. I love the first third. The first third took me about 2 days to read, and the back 2/3 took me about 3 weeks to read. I really struggled with the last kind of 2/3 of Fairy Tale. Have you read Gentlemen Bastards, Thomas?
I started 40 pages of Lies of Lochmora, and then I started dreaming of, Empire of Silence.
Yes.
So I took that as, hey, I'll put Lies down and I'll read Empire of Silence. But I loved every bit of what I was reading. I don't know if it was Dark Lord present or someone else, but earlier someone mentioned we should do a buddy read of Lies of Lochmora.
I have had that book. I kid you not. My mother-in-law got it for me for Christmas 2018. And I have this book in that next room. I can't get rid of it, and I want to read it at some point, but it's never quite felt like the time. So yeah, and it's only a trilogy so far. I know there's a 4th book kind of coming out soon.
It is, but the cool thing, what I've heard, is you can read the first book as almost a standalone. So I'm going to take that and run with it, because any books that I can read as a standalone, that's a win, because everything seems to be a series or a trilogy, and more so series. Mike actually did a video on various hot takes and things that have annoyed him. Mm-hmm. 2 of which are Magic System and book series, and how books are more 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 book series, versus just a trilogy. And I miss trilogies.
The Greenbone Saga, one of my favorite reads last year.
Okay.
If you want a recommendation for a book that I love that is a standalone, it's more of a horror than a fantasy. Have you heard of The Terror by Dan Simmons?
No, but I've heard of that author.
So Dan Simmons wrote Hyperion Cantos.
Yeah,
which is
okay.
one of my The Terror is a brilliantly self-contained, I'll tell you, a little novel. It's about 600, 700 pages. Let me pitch it to you. Are you ready? Because I read this book on holiday, as I often do, and it was one of these books, when you're reading a book, like very special kinds of book where you're reading it and you're going, this is a book that I cannot put down, and this is a book that I will be recommending. You're halfway through it, but you know that it's going to be with you for the rest of your life. That is the Terror for me. Real history. I think about 150, 200 years ago, 2 ships went out to find the Northwest Passage, kind of skip around Canada, and they failed miserably. Terror and Erebus, these 2 ships, and they were never seen again. And so Dan Simmons is writing a historical horror novel, articulating what might have happened to them. It kind of like a semi-Stephen King vibe, but much more gritty, much more atmospheric. So starting the novel based on real history. If Dan Simmons is to follow the real history, none of these guys are making it out alive. You know that from the beginning.
Yeah.
And you also know that these men are encased in the ice, and it's winter. And so you have these 2 ships stuck in ice for months and months and months in the pitch blackness. And I won't spoil anything more than that, but it's deeply atmospheric. It's horrifying, and the characters are phenomenal. I think Dan Simmons and Stephen King, in some ways, they're not bedfellows, but in that respect, they are bedfellows because they can both paint a very, very convincing character. So, The Terror by Dan Simmons. I need to read it. Actually, I've already read it once. I enjoyed it immensely. I'm just catching up on the comments as well.
Yeah.
But that's my elevator pitch. Quite a long elevator, but that's my pitch. It all depends on the hard magic system is done and presented. Like Spider-Man can be seen as hard magic, and that's easy to follow. Yes, I think Mistborn sometimes can feel like, at its worst, it can feel like an instruction manual. Might be one way of putting it, or like a puzzle book.
The Rogue mentioned a little comment just up above about Sanderson.
Oh yeah, I missed that one.
Yeah, you can put that up.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I like when an author and a filmmaker trusts the audience, allowing us to come to our own conclusions, or allowing for us to trust them, because Sanderson constantly is reminding us of his magic system, and it gets exhausting for me personally.
Do you know, I don't know if you've encountered the channel. He started only a couple months ago. He's called The First Chapter with Chris. Don't know if you've encountered him.
Yes.
He's just read Mistborn. For those of you who haven't heard of Chris, what I'll probably do when I finish this live stream, I'll go through it, or I'll try and remember everyone we talked about, and I'll tag them down below, telling them they were mentioned. He started reading later in his life. I believe he's somewhere in his 30s, and he's just decided, now I'm going to become a reader, and I'm going to just pick up the books that people recommend. And he has had a fabulous time with Mistborn. And he was not so keen on it like the first kind of halfway through, but he said the ending is what really sold him. And for him, he said he enjoyed that ending of that book immensely. And he kind of said, like, he made 3 videos on it, and he said he kind of regrets posting a second video because Sanderson, he said, for the end really captured him. And I wonder, maybe Sanderson, and I don't want to say that experienced fantasy readers Sanderson is not for them, because I really enjoy Sanderson, but I do also think Sanderson can be a really good gateway author at the same time.
I agree.
For a lot of people. Yeah.
It's just digestible, and fantasy can be very daunting, especially with certain writing styles. If there are, if they're old school, from Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time, and from the 80s and whatnot. But Sanderson, great, just great doorway into fantasy, I feel like.
I'm going to make that video this week on my Sanderson hot takes. Another one I mentioned this with Jake from Nerd Double Rising. I really like his corporate side. I like that he's pushing the fantasy space so much into the wider public. We've got a comment here saying, I know Dungeon Crawler Carl because of Thomas's wife. So we're spreading the Dungeon Crawler Carl gospel as far as we can.
And I guess I know of Dungeon Crawler Carl because of my wife. I mean, I bought it for her, but she just speaks so highly of it that I can't help but wanting to dive into it more and more.
Thomas Ligotti is cosmic and existential horror. If you want pure bleak nihilism, check him out. I've been enjoying the nihilism in my books. I don't know what that says about me. I've been starting R. Scott Baker, and I've been enjoying that too. He only does short stories. Oh, yes, you've sold me. I need more short stories in my life. I love short story collections.
Short stories.
You asked me, do I annotate my books? The exception is, what I'll do is, if I have a collection of short stories, I will tick them off as I go. I literally get a pen, and every time I finish a story, I go tick. And there's something quite, I don't know, a certain part of my brain really enjoys doing that. So I'm always looking for more short stories. Do you think you'll return to Lies of Lochmore anytime soon? I guess you said maybe after Sun Eater.
Maybe. It really depends, because it's funny. I've been just juggling with this whole thing. Sun Eater, Lies of Lochmore, and Farseer trilogy. These are all kind of coming of age stories, and I don't want to read them side by side, back to back, because it's that same engine of a story that I don't want to beat on the head and just overexhaust. So I want to spread them out. I don't know.
The young man coming of age. Yeah. Bildungsroman, that's the term, I think. I could be wrong. But yeah, I agree. You're going to love Robin Hobb, though. But yeah, I think I don't know if you read more than one book at a time. I tend to read 3 or 4.
I do,
but they
one
have
book
to be
at a
different.
time.
Yeah. For me, if I have a book that overlaps, it becomes mush. So I think you're right in doing that.
I think if you are going to read side by side or multiple books at the same time, they have to be different genres. Because if I'm reading 2 sci-fis side by side or 2 fantasy side by side, I'm going to get a little confused, and I feel like it'll ruin the experience for me, with, as in, like, immersion to a specific other world, other magic systems, and whatnot.
Yeah. I told Tom this previously, but Lies of Lochmore is my favorite book ever. Best thing I've ever read. Would recommend everyone check it out.
Yeah.
And And I know there's some booktubers as well who rate it very high. I think it was Murphy Napier, and there's
Yep.
one of the big name booktubers who it's their favorite series of all time.
That's been at her top every year. She's done a book series list. It's been still there.
Yeah, and I've got it next door, and I'm never. Yeah, people are into longer stories right now. I think a lot of that has to do with video game and comic book influences. I'd agree. Game of Thrones maybe as well. I think opened that door quite a lot. It's interesting now that we're kind of I don't say we're moving into it, because Robin Hobb's been there for years and years, but seeing more and more trilogies of trilogies and things like that coming out, which for me works really well. I think it dampens that feeling of investment. Joe Abercrombie's another one. Marie Merlani, who I interviewed, she does the same thing. Rob J. Hayes, as a self-pub author, he's just released, I think, book 1 in 3 separate trilogies, and he's going to do book 1 of all 3, and then book 2 of all 3, and then book 3 of all 3. I mean, that's mental. But I quite enjoy the idea of compartmentalizing a larger world into smaller self-contained stories. I think there's definitely lots to do there. Terry Pratchett, great example of that too.
Yeah, I love that idea, because it helps the reader. You know, you're not going to approach the realm of elderly, or what's it called?
The realm of the elderly, the realm of the elderlings.
Yeah,
the realm of the elderly.
Yeah, too many syllables.
Yeah.
You're not going to approach that series as like an 18-book series. You're going to approach it as one trilogy at a time. And I think that's approachable. That's digestible. It's not like, you know, Wheel of Time is one story told continuous through 14 books. Yeah. Whereas, you know, the Farseer trilogy is one story in the world. And I love that, especially as someone who plays Dungeons and Dragons. And runs Dungeons and Dragons games as a dungeon master.
Or do you?
Have you played Dungeons and Dragons?
In uni. It's one of these things that I know I'd love to death, and I've never
quite done.
It,
especially as an English teacher. But real quick, one thing I like to do with that is not run a full campaign. I used to, but now as an adult, I feel like all my friends, we only have time for a one-shot here and there, you know, one session for one night.
That's the issue, isn't it? Yeah.
But it's actually a great thing, because then you can tell one little story, but have the same world. And that little one-shot can change the world. So next time we do a one-shot with different characters or the same characters, they will see their choices changing the landscape of the overarching world, and other NPCs reacting to their choices. So I love when a book series does bite-sized trilogies within the overarching thing.
Do you know that Malazan, if I can bring it back, I always bring it back to Malazan. Malazan was based on, it wasn't Dungeons and Dragons, but it was a similar kind of role-playing thing. They gamed most of that series, and then before they ever put pen to paper.
You're just
making an interesting concept, isn't it? Do Sun Eater first.
Yeah, I will, but I will eventually. For some reason, I feel like Malazan is like this. I gotta wait till I'm like 90, you know?
And it's also got this pedigree behind it now, where its reputation precedes it for better and for worse. Yeah, I'm just looking at some of these comments. Never recommend Malazan to someone's first. Fantasy books that start with 10 pages of characters and 4 maps are indeed intimidating. Yeah, I enjoy a good map, but the roster that now accompanies so many books, I find daunting. Even if I really love
one of the worst maps ever is Liza Blanc Mora.
I didn't even know it had a map.
It's just the city, and it's just the most basic, minimal map ever. Like, it almost seems uninspired. Yet that city is so fully realized that the map is just like, what?
It's supposed to be like a fantasy kind of Venice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have Lies on my shelf and it's taunting me, says Sebastian.
We should all do a buddy read.
I would be down. I need to read that series. I think this is about lies as well. Got to read it. Don't expect any crazy magic. Yeah.
Yep.
You will. I'm going to say it one more time. You will love Robin Hobb when you get to her. She has. It's like you said with Wheel of Time. The 2 years it took you to really enjoy that series. That's what I've had with Robin Hobb. I started book 1 about 20 months ago now. I'm only on book 9. So it's every few months I'll just pick another one up, and they're this lovely slow, delicious writing that is kind of the inverse of a lot of these kind of pop fast authors you get today. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Slay runs a tabletop RPG. Yeah, I'd love to. It's just, I think when my kids are older, that's something I'm going to make as a hobby.
Oh, what a joy that is with children. Like, I want to run it for my nephew and niece eventually, but it's a game that allows you to use your imagination, creativity, social skills, teamwork.
Yes.
It's amazing. It needs to be in every school, I think.
Oh, that's a great idea. The one thing I'm doing with my son, my daughter's too young, kind of, she's 2, but my son who's 4, he's just beginning to develop all this stuff. And it's really, I never want to push anything on him, because I kind of know what that's like. Or my father has a hobby that I can't get into it, and I've tried, and but I love encouraging, for as far as it goes, the love of the story. We kind of do 2 things. So currently what we're doing is me and my son, we're playing Dragon Quest together, the original Dragon Quest on my phone.
Wow.
So you can get Dragon Quest 1 on iOS. And there's something, it's very innocent and sweet. It's like you're kind of taking out slimes with a sword. It's nothing too big. But there's also that thing that I think, and I don't know if this is going to make sense, so I'm going to try and articulate this best I can. And forgive me if it makes no sense whatsoever. What I really enjoy about playing these older school games with my son is that the representation, you have to imprint more imagination onto the game than you have to. If you play Red Dead Redemption 2 and you're looking at a horse, it looks like a horse. It's not really representing anything. But when you are playing a game like Dragon Quest, because the graphics are lower and everything is maybe not isometric, top down, you have to use your imagination more. The dragon in the game doesn't breathe fire. You get the text saying the dragon breathes fire, and it almost feels more like an interactive book, which I'm really enjoying with him. And does that make sense?
Like kind of like one of those just like early RPGs where not everything is shown. It's just kind of told through words, but then you got to fill in the blank.
So what happens is it's kind of like Final Fantasy, but it's a picture, a square picture of a dragon, and then the text will say you have encountered a dragon. Attack, spell, blah, 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 blah.
Interesting.
And so my son will just see the picture of the dragon, and he didn't quite get it at first. He's like, "But Dad, where's the real dragon? That's just a picture." I'm like, no, that is the dragon. And he's like, "No, it's not. It's not moving." I'm like, "But you got to imagine it moving." And he's like, "What if it, I don't know, opens its mouth?" And you get that lovely sort of back and forth conversation that you wouldn't get with a modern game these days. So I enjoy that. And I haven't done this as much. I need to get back to this, but I used to kind of tell him stories when I'm trying to put him to sleep, and I would let him kind of ad lib the story.
Yes.
So I'd say, and then the hero walks around the corner and there was and my son will just yell out like, "Blue washing machine." And I'm like, yeah, and the blue wash, yeah. And that kind of interactive storytelling is lovely to see as a parent. I really need to do more of it, to be honest, getting back to that, because
it's so important.
Watching that imagination bubble and boil over is wonderful.
I feel like we don't allow children to activate their imagination as much anymore, because we're in such a technically advanced society where it's just screens, and that takes away that light bulb of imagination. And just, I'd be playing for hours by myself in the backyard with a lightsaber, or
exactly, or
with a Lego gun. I'd be James Bond, and I'd save the world, and then I'd go eat lunch. It's something that I will definitely try to encourage if ever I have the opportunity to raise a child or two.
It's part of the reason that we're leaving Kuwait at the end of this academic year. And Slay, I don't know if you're going to have you feel free to input on this, but one thing I'm quite struggling with living in Kuwait is how, when I remember when I was a kid and you can walk out that door, and again, we go back to the idea of that sense of freedom, but it's really hard to find a space for me in this country where I could just say to my kids, go and explore the forest, but I'll see you in half an hour. It doesn't really tend to exist as much here. And I really want to have that for my children, which is why we're kind of relocating at the end of this year. Slave, please provide me your 2 cents, because you're from here. But yeah, I'm just seeing some more comments. If you do Malazan, I'm doing it with you, Thomas, says Sebastian. I'm actually doing a reread with, we haven't announced it, so I don't know if I can say who they were, but I'm doing 2 buddy reads this year, one being Sun Eater and the other being my Malazan reread. So I'm deeply excited to get back into that series as well. Excited. So it's so good. Finn says, Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman played D&D before they wrote their Dragonlance novels. Yeah, it's a good cauldron for the imagination.
Yeah.
Anyone have this weird experience of just now getting into fantasy books as an adult? It feels like being late to a party that started years ago. we all get into it when we get into it.
Yeah,
I'm just happy
I
to
agree.
hear.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't feel like I've missed out. Well, only to the point of just reading books. It's like I wish I was reading or had the passion of reading as a young high school kid. But,
Mhm.
we spent high school the way we did. We spent elementary the way we did, and that's just how it is. And at this chapter of life, we're into reading books, and I don't see myself leaving at all.
Yeah. I was like 17, and I'm an English teacher, but I didn't read books properly until I was about 17. Um, I think it's more common than people realize that, you kind of go through this dip in school where reading becomes uncool. And then a lot of people do get out of it, which is lovely to see. I
Yeah.
had a student at my school, and I gave her, because I don't need it anymore, my copy of Blood Over Bright Haven. And she actually just came up to me today and said, "Sir, that book was incredible." And she is a reader, the student, but she said, "I never read fantasy. I thought fantasy was a bit trashy. This book has sold me." That was a really lovely moment today. We all approach reading or different genres at the time we're ready for it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And
I feel like the only thing where I will feel left out is when someone comes at me like, "Oh my gosh, you haven't watched this? Well, you haven't read this? What?"
Yes.
It's like, come on, let me enjoy. Like, I started with Harry Potter before I read Name of the Wind. And
Yep.
I felt like I keep using this term, but I felt like a kid again. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, because I'm relating to Harry Potter with what he's
Yes.
going through. So, but when I would talk to other people, like, oh, I'm just now reading Harry Potter, like, oh, it's like, okay,
You've never
sorry,
read Harry yet.
sorry.
I've never read Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Never read Lord of the Rings. I need to. I will.
Yeah.
But I've read the Two Towers, but I've not read the other two. And I read the Two Towers via audiobook when I was like 8, so I don't know if that
Mhm.
fully counts. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does
Yeah.
feel like you're kind of late for a lot of stuff. But I think that's usually the case for stuff when there's so much content. And yeah,
Yep.
one of
Agreed.
the joys of being a fantasy fan right now is there's so much, dude.
Too
And I
much.
was having well, yes, but in a great
It's
way.
not a bad thing. I know.
We've got this ocean, and there's something for everyone. The romantasy books are all the rage
Exactly.
right now, and lots of people are loving those. You've
Yeah.
got the Brandon Sanderson kind of maybe more simplistic prose, but hard magic, and that almost puzzle
Mhm.
box of a book. You've got the literary, high level academic stuff. You've got the grim dark. You've got the comedy. And you've got so many in between. And one thing I'm kind of realizing on my channel as well is how much self-pub is now out there, which is why I'm doing that series on my channel of self-pub, because I used to see self-published authors as authors who couldn't make it. And I've only recently been exposed to this almost feels like underground world, and not so much anymore, of all these books that I have mentally thrown to one side because they're
Yeah.
self-pub. And
It's
and
crazy.
Dungeon Crawler Carl was self-pub. It's exploded it's doubled my literary horizons. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's fantastic. I'm gushing, but in
Yeah.
a good way, I hope.
I had coffee with an author. First time I ever had coffee with an author. It was very cool. He's releasing his first book in May. And just hearing, an author talk about their book and just how passionate they are and
Yeah.
where they started, like that alone gets me just pumped up to try out that book,
Yes.
regardless of acumen and background and qualification.
Yes. And I love that so many authors now are interacting in the space.
Yeah.
We're talking all authors. I know there's a kind of a marketing thing there where they kind of want to sell their books. So, but it also does seem as though that the authors are really genuinely enjoying the conversations.
Yeah. That's important
Yeah.
to allow them to have those conversations because things just get overshadowed. TikTok
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
Slays.
All that stuff. Yeah. What's
Yeah.
what's like?
This is the problem. This is the problem, isn't it, with the screens? I love screens, but also there's challenges. Slay said, just very quickly before I go to Callisto, my eyes were glued to a screen since I was born. I have asthma. 90% of my indoor life in Kuwait has been indoors. Yeah, Slay. It's kind of lots of shopping malls in Kuwait is what we've kind of discovered. And I love a good shopping mall, but I do miss the green. There's a lot to admire about Kuwait. There's a lot I really like about Kuwait, and we'll talk about this tomorrow, Slay. But I find that I kind of miss just like walking through a forest. And maybe I'm an idiot for moving to a country where there is no forest. I can't really blame the country. That's kind of on me, isn't it? But that's something that I'm looking to return to, and something that I kind of want to give my kids is that kind of more varied nature. Lot to admire about Kuwait, but that's something that I need a bit more of, I think. You're never too late to discover a book or reading in general. Totally agree. My grandfather, until he was literally, he was on his deathbed. He was in hospital. His Kindle was his favorite thing. He was reading books up until the day he passed, just blowing through books in his Kindle.
Love that.
Black Company. Fun fact about the Black Company. Well, first of all, I think there's a new book coming out. Glenn Cook wrote The Black Company doing his job, a sentence at a time. I think it was some kind of factory he was working in. Glenn Cook would write a sentence, walk away, do 10 minutes of whatever stuff he had to do, and then he'd come back and he'd write another sentence. And that's why those books, it's not just the tone of it being military fantasy, the staccato tone of those books, or those early books, is because he, had to very quickly jot something down and come away. So he couldn't write these big floral sentences because he didn't have the time for it on his job. I love that. And then Aragon was one of those rare fantasy books where I did read as a kid. I don't know if you read Aragon as a kid, Thomas. It's one of those books that did punch through a lot of people.
No, I didn't. I don't know. I don't know too much about it. It's the one with the dragon on the cover, right?
He was 16, 15 when he wrote that book. Christopher Paolini. Yeah, he has a blue dragon, which name is, I think, Sapphire or Saphira or something. But yeah, it's just this incredible talent for such a young age. So you know what? I'm trying to think of what my first fantasy book would be, and I think maybe it was Aragon. I mean, Harry Potter is one of these books. I even now I go to sleep listening to stuff, and I don't know if that's to drown out the voices that are going on in my head. But since I was a kid, I always just listened to stuff. So I listened to Harry Potter. I listened to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I understood about a third of the jokes. Yep. But Hitchhiker's Guide is one of my big favorites still to this day. And I had Aragon. So maybe you can make a case that Aragon was one of my first fantasy books, personally. Yeah, I despise shopping, Cicely. Other than work, the only time I leave my home is on Fridays. I visit my grandparents' graves, have breakfast, and head back home. There's not a whole lot to do. It's a very relaxed culture, Kuwait. Everyone is very happy to just kind of go for walks down the beach and hang out and have coffee. It has been my impression, and again, you'll know more than I will.
Sounds like the life to just enjoy and read a book and walk and drink coffee. That's nice.
Kuwait's very interesting in the kind of the Middle Eastern region because it's surrounded by cities that are much bigger and much more famous. Qatar just had the Olympics, the World Cup, the Football World Cup.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, Dubai is Dubai. Abu Dhabi is Abu Dhabi. Oman is a little bit different because Oman has much more kind of small. They try and keep everything kind of lower to the ground and traditional. But Kuwait's kind of in this middle space where it's not hugely vast, but at the same time it's I say developing a little bit more. There's always kind of construction and stuff going. It's still trying to find itself in some ways. Might be a fair way of putting it.
That's where I'm at. We live in between just big cities, so our culture is very chill.
Can I ask where you are?
It's central coast of California.
Okay.
Like Santa Barbara area-ish. It's not LA, it's not San Francisco, but it's just this relaxing culture. We don't deal with a lot of traffic. We don't really have rush hour as much. I like it, and we got good coffee shops. So I'm happy.
This is a complete tangent. I know we're probably kind of short in time. We said about an hour and 15, and we're almost at 2 hours. But I've been really meaning to get into coffee. Just something that I've always wanted to do. Do you know what it is? It's watching TikToks and YouTube shorts of people making coffees.
Yeah.
The whole set that looks like it cost about several $1,000s. But there's something very
it doesn't. It's a Chemex
with stuff.
Yeah, well, okay. My wife has a really nice espresso machine that she was gifted by her grandmother, and yeah, that could cost if you like cappuccinos and whatnot. But if you like just drip coffee, you could just get a simple Chemex and some filters. Get a gooseneck pot to warm up your water, and you're good.
You'll notice that in every single one of my videos, I'll always have a coffee on standby.
Love it. Good. Yeah, you should let's just make it a thing with BookTube. Just bring it, make it a theme.
You as well. Your intros are usually coffee based.
Always. Yeah. I feel like I have to. It's just part of the brand now.
But
I
there is something nice about talking about a book with a beverage.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I know there's been some complaints, and I also had you talk about the critical comment that you got, I think I had someone do a video response, and
Oh,
right in the
really?
beginning, he was ripping me because of
About
my
what?
slurping. But I don't slurp like that.
That's just
I
away
just,
from that.
you know, but the rest of the video was very constructive and kind and but he does responses to all sorts of stuff on BookTube. But it was very funny with
Yeah.
the coffee thing. It's like, okay, if you don't like people drinking coffee in the beginning of a video, I don't know what to tell you because
I
I'm
think
going to
most
do
people
that.
should. Yeah. It's nice, but it's reflective reality about what a book club is like, and I don't think it's fake. It's not like we're doing it for the aesthetic appeal. It's nice to have something while you're talking about something you're passionate
Yeah,
about.
I
Yeah,
genuinely I feel like I have to have a cup of coffee with a BookTube video.
I had a student come up to me a few weeks ago. And he says, like, "Sir," he's like, "I'm worried about you." I'm like, "Why is that?" He's like, "You're always boiling the kettle." Because my classroom where I teach is right next to the sixth form, the space where the older kids hang out, and they have a kettle in there. And between lessons, the lessons where I teach is like an hour and 20 minutes long. I will dash through, make a coffee, and then run back into my classroom for the next lesson. Because it's the same thing. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy sitting on my desk, teaching the students with a cup of coffee. It feels more natural for me.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
I'd probably be doing
Teaching
the same
teaching
thing.
is amazing when it's going well. It's the best thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And when it's stressful, it's very stressful.
It's not an easy job. I know that for a fact.
Yeah. But you know what? And I was speaking about this with my interview with Shay and Von Roycroft. It's going to come out tomorrow. He said that he remembers getting into writing and fantasy because he was a sixth grade, I think. I might be misinterpreting that. And his first year teacher gave him a copy of Lord of the Rings. And that was enough to catapult him. And we were talking a lot about in the interview the fact that you never know the words you're going to say to someone or the actions that you are committing that are going to punch into people's long-term memory. The stuff that you think is truly impactful.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even remember some of my teachers from high school, to be honest. Like when I was 11, 12, 13, those teachers, I guess what's American middle school, some of them are gone. And I spent years with those people. And at the same time, you'll remember passing a comment from someone on the street, and that will hang in your head for the rest of your
Mhm.
life. And there's something about teaching that is deeply empowering and deeply scary because you never know the word or the sentence, whether it's a kind affirmation or something that you meant as a joke that is kind of cutting. You never know the comment that's going to stick. And
Yeah. Yeah, and also I
there's
feel like
yeah,
repetition too.
yeah,
Um, I think it's key to have repetition in teaching because everyone learns at different rates and in different ways, and you don't know people's attention span, attention whatever. Everyone's different, and
yes,
when you repeat something, it may be annoying to someone who's actually listening, but maybe someone is just now listening and picking up on what you're saying, and you're
yep,
repeating that same
yep,
point, and then
yep.
it sticks. So that's what I love.
It's one of these things in teaching. There's a big debate in teaching, and I don't quite know which way the academic wind is blowing right now about setting. Do you take the low level kids and put them in one class, and the top level kids in another class, so you can give them the instruction that they need, or do you put them all together and hope that the high kids kind of motivate the low kids and do it like that? It's a really tricky topic because you're right. You do have these kids who are high
My
flyers and
gut would
can
be put everyone together, in my
they
opinion.
both have real advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah,
So when you have a kid who is incredibly advanced and can write an essay as they walk into your room, and then you have another student who's struggling and maybe doesn't understand punctuation marks, full stops,
yeah,
commas. How do you have both of those sitting next to each other and are able to help both of them on a full-time
yeah.
teaching schedule? It's really challenging. So that's something that I'm constantly thinking about and considering. And I go back and forth. Yeah, but I love teaching to death. And when it's going well, it is this amazing
Well, I
thing.
mean, you've been doing
I'm
it
just
for what,
noticing.
10 years?
Oh, 10 years. Yeah. I worked with ESL, first of all, English as a second language, and I've kind of more recently moved to English as first language, but the truth is I kind of teach both, and I'm going to be teaching both in my new role as well. I'm going to skim down and say hi to my mate, David, who is someone I know in real life and is fabulous, and is also a sculptor, which is really amazing. And he produces all these sculptures and things like that for various parts around Scotland. So hi, David, good to see you. Wow. And David also has just completed his first book, which I've seen pictures of.
Well, like wrote?
Yeah, that he wrote himself.
Wow. Okay.
So, and he does that with children as well. So I don't know how he's doing all of that, but yeah, good to see you, Dave.
Amazing.
Yeah. I like the smell of coffee. Yep, I agree.
Yep.
I used to remember my high school English teacher because he gave me his copy to read of the Da Vinci Code. Yeah, you do remember the books as well, and you do remember the words. I don't know if there's any book that you read in high school that kind of stuck out to you.
Nope.
None. What books did you read as like assigned material in class?
I mean, maybe Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah, okay.
But I know if I read it again, it'll hit on a whole nother level, and I think it'll be a little more tangible.
Yeah.
But I think that's the only thing that I can remember.
Speaking of short stories, Ray Bradbury is a really good short story writer.
Okay. Isn't there there's a book that I was recommended at a used bookstore? Something about a guy with a tattoo, living tattoos, and there's like short stories that are being told through the tattoos. Pretty sure that's a short story compilation, and they all kind of coincide together. I'll show it to you. It's somewhere. Maybe it's up there, but
one project I have that I want to do at some point is buy all of, because you have these beautiful Ray Bradbury massive collected editions. I'd love to work through his stuff.
Yeah. He's someone I want to read. I want to read something Wicked This Way Comes.
Yeah. Remind me to talk to you about my favorite. We're kind of like reading all the comments now, which is great. It's good to catch up. Remind me to talk to you about my favorite
Illustrated Man. That's what it is. Sorry.
I thought it would be my favorite class ever, and it was one of the worst. I dropped it. And so much of your enjoyment of a class does depend on the teacher, doesn't it? Which, I think we often see the best teachers, and I'm not saying I am the best teacher at all. I try my best, which is all you can do. But a lot of people see the best teacher as a teacher with great kind of personality, or a teacher who can make jokes and keep the class lively. But I think ultimately the best teacher is the teacher who's really trying.
I agree.
But at the same time, I often wonder, is that setting up too high expectations of teachers that teachers have to give 100% all the time? And that almost becomes
just like anything in life, you're not able to do 100%.
Yeah,
you could strive, but you're not gonna be able to do that every single day. You're gonna have down days, but to approach, life and struggling and adversity with objectivity, that's key. Being able to recognize, okay, I'm not able to do 100% today, but I need to not give up at least,
Yeah.
So being a teacher, I don't know. I don't know what that's like.
Wonderful when it's going well. Incredible. Yeah. And there's so many rewarding moments. Yeah. I had a student in my class last year, and this student struggled a little bit academically with English, but they came up, we read A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, and it's 200 pages, this book. It's really, really thin, but quite poignant. It's about a boy whose mother has, it's never explicitly stated as cancer, but it's almost certainly cancer. And it's her trying to go through the treatments and the boy coming to terms with it. And the way he comes to terms with it is he visualizes or summons a monster to come and basically give him therapy. And this student said to me at the end of this, after we finished this book, and I thought it had gone quite well, but obviously it depends on the student, depends on the day. But this kid comes up to me and they say, "Sir, I went to a bookshop for the first time this weekend because we finished A Monster Calls and I want a new book to read." And then the student showed me the two books that they bought at the bookstore. And they were both garbage books. But I didn't say that to her because I like to be good at my job. But it was wonderful. Do you know what I mean? They went out on the weekend to choose two books themselves because of, not really me, but the experience that they enjoyed reading this book. Yeah, A Monster Calls by my eyes. I've just seen that. It's very beautifully done in such a really short space. Must be about 50,000 words, that book. It's super short.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing when just that light bulb clicks and
Yeah.
someone wants to just go to the bookstore and
Yeah.
just start that journey of reading.
Yeah. I read Fahrenheit 451 a few weeks ago for the first time. It was intense and amazing. The Illustrated Man.
Yeah, that was the
Lewis.
book that I was talking about with the
Yeah.
tattoos.
Is it recent or is it quite an old book?
I mean, the copy was
Oh,
very
it's older.
dilapidated,
Yeah.
so I felt like it's older.
That's a short story collection. The Once and Future King. I remember one of the worst teachers we ever had. Yeah, but you also remember the best teachers, don't you?
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
so many teachers who just for whatever reason do resonate with you, and you will remember them 20, 30 years on.
I agree.
And I want to be one.
There's plenty I remember.
I had a marvelous teacher who I'm still in contact with, and I wonder if maybe she'll see this because we're friends, and she was when she taught me, she was kind of in her, I believe, early 60s, something like this. And she would come in and she would, I don't want to say the word pontificate because that sounds like no learning was done, but the learning was done through her being really passionate, especially about social justice causes, where she would just walk into the room and we'll start talking about whatever book we were reading. And then she would begin to spiral off into talking about, I don't know, the prison system and how the prison system is inadequate, or she'd talk about, the representation of women in this. And she would just go on these rants. Which makes her sound again like she's not really focusing on the kids, but it's really marvelous when you're young and you have this teacher telling you about the world and making it clear that it's their opinion, but linking the books that you're reading into that wider world, which I think is why I kind of want my channel the way it is, kind of talking about those connections.
Yeah, when you're able to kind of like, hey, this book is a story, but there's also a connection to reality, and
yes,
this is what I take from it, and what do you take from it, and then maybe they can find connections that way.
Absolutely. It's genuinely sad how young are discouraged from reading in Kuwait. Yeah, I've never seen a single person. I've seen people reading the Quran in public, Slade, but I've never seen anyone reading a book in a coffee shop while I'm here. And I don't know if that's just me, but it certainly seems to be lacking. But I don't know. Maybe I'm imprinting that on Kuwait, and that's just a problem in the wider world as well. That everyone's on their phones, but no one's actually out there reading a book. So yeah, take that with a pinch of salt. Chris is here. Hi, Chris. Good to see you. I was shouting you out earlier. I don't know if you were in the chat at that point, but we were talking about your experience reading Mistborn.
Yeah, I still need to watch those videos.
Yeah, and how you had a dip and then you kind of really enjoyed it at the end and you're glad you stuck with it. So we're talking about kind of Mistborn as a good entry point, and also but something that is still worthwhile, but also some of the flaws kind of inherent in Sanderson is what we were talking about. But yeah, I'm gonna tag you when this video comes up and make sure that everyone we're talking about knows that they've been mentioned. But yeah, so many bestsellers are male. That's true, isn't it? Especially fantasy is still a very male-dominated space. And it's not just you.
And then we don't give Robin Hobb any attention.
I know. We're just staying with our.
No one knows about Robin Hobb. When you think fantasy, everyone talks about Lord of the Rings. But I'm like, guys, Robin Hobb. I haven't even read her, and I already know, just from who I've, trusted. Have talked about Robin Hobb and how highly they speak of her and her writing. I'm just like, oh, can't wait. It's really exciting. My sister ate up the Life Ship Trader trilogy.
Yes.
And she thinks it's her favorite trilogy of all time.
I was speaking to another booktuber. We were talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl, actually. Her channel's Derry's read it before. And she kind of talks about the fact that she mentioned this on her channel, so I'm not disclosing anything. But she had a medical incident where she struggles now to read new fiction, but she says that because it's easier for her to just revisit the old favorites. And she says that Robin Hobb is just this author she just keeps coming back to, and she finds every time she reads Robin Hobb, these books, she just gets more and more out of it, and the complexities of the character and the layers to it. She's phenomenal, by the way. And she's the only person who kind of matches my time zone because she's in New Zealand, but I'll tag her as well. Yeah, I'm so glad I stuck with it. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Right, Chris, let me talk to you. I know we're probably kind of beginning to wrap up because it's approaching midnight here, but I'm having too much fun.
Oh my God.
But Chris, let me tell you, Mistborn Book 2, I do not enjoy. I don't know if I'm in the minority there, but you might find that the Well of Ascension is not for you. But I would say for me, my favorite Sanderson ever is that second series, I forgot what they're called, the Wax and Wayne series.
Yep.
So, that series goes up and down for me personally. But if you're finding it a bit tough with book 2, you might want to consider sticking with it, because I do think there's a lot of good stuff in that Wax and Wayne series. But I'm really enjoying your channel, Chris. I'm loving seeing your perspective, because what you say, Chris, sometimes is that I don't have any of the technical know-how. I don't have any of the terminology to discuss these books. I'm just going to talk about the books. And I think that's kind of what we need more of. And I think actually your analysis and your discussion of these books is actually really deeply insightful. I'm just complimenting you, and you can't fight back because you're in the comments. But I really appreciate the fact that you have all this insightful stuff, and you don't feel the need to kind of dress it up and come across as this university professor. It feels really real, but your comments are actually really on point. First chapter with Chris. Subscribe to him too. He is phenomenal.
I think that's what we're missing. It's or at least we're not seeing enough of, or the algorithm isn't giving us enough channels. I'm thankful that Chris popped up in mine. It's being able to follow someone's reading journey right from the beginning, and they're an adult. That's awesome. That is exciting. Or not to just tangent it away to video games, but when you hear or see channels like playing a video game for the first time, and this game's been out for 15 years, it's like, oh my gosh, I want to watch this. Because you're almost able to not really live vicariously through, their experience, but you're able to put your shoes in with like Chris, and be like, okay, I read that book years ago, but I'm excited to hear his thoughts, and I want to see how we connect with opinions on that.
Do you know the reviews that I watch the most, actually? I watch reviews of people whose, I'm phrasing this terribly. I enjoy the most watching the book reviews from the booktubers I like when I've already read the book. Does that make sense? Yeah. I don't really like if Sun EATER stuff. I'm really going to enjoy Sun EATER with you. I haven't watched many Sun EATER reviews by other people, even the spoiler-free ones.
I don't want to.
What I do. Is Malazan. Like, if people are reading Malazan for the first time, I will click on every single one of those videos because I love that series to death. I want to partake in that and enjoy that with them. I agree. I was going to say, Callisto, I totally agree. You don't need a PhD to talk about books. And I think sometimes what people will, that's kind of what I was trying to say, isn't it? Like, dress up their credentials because they feel like that will make them a better booktuber. And actually, insights comes from slow reading and considering and connecting it to other books you've read and connecting it to your own experiences. And I think as good as someone like the Critical Dragon is, and I really do enjoy his stuff, that's not necessary to be on the scene. So I totally vibe with what you're saying. And Chris, you're very welcome, mate. I really mean it. You're awesome.
He's the man.
Yeah. I am going to have to, apologies, Thomas, but probably wrap up because I'm teaching in about 7 hours, actually.
Get some sleep and then get some coffee.
I have enjoyed this immensely. I am really looking forward to doing Sun EATER with you, man. And I don't know if we'll do it like a live stream like this, or if we're going to do it pre-recorded and post our thoughts together. But however we decide to tackle that, whatever pace we decide to tackle that, I really can't think of many people to do this series with you, especially at good timing as well, because book 7 is about to come out, so we don't have to wait. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. I really appreciate it, and it's a joy just to chat about the things we love.
Yeah, and everyone in the comments as well. Thanks for hanging out, and thanks for making the comments. It's amazing. Really appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to hit end stream, and then Thomas, just hold you back for one more minute because I want to show you how it works on the back end. Okay, thanks guys very much. I will see you on the next one. Bye.